Monday, so let's take this opportunity to debate Joe Biden's legacy, Donald Trump's legacy, and we have an eclectic bunch with us who are going to give their ideas on whether or not, I don't know, Trump's a fascist or women should even be voting in the first place. So you can tell it's going to get wild in this room. Why don't we start with you, Myron?
One half of the Fresh Fit podcast. Happy to be here. I also run my own political talk show, Myron Gaines X, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Fresh Fit after that. And yeah, let's get into it. Happy to be here, man.
Luke Beasley, liberal political commentator. You can find me on YouTube at Luke Beasley. Pumped. Good to be back. Tim, Myron, Andrew. Nice to meet y'all.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson. I'm the host of The Crucible. It's a popular entertainment channel on YouTube. Political analyst, political satirist, and Bloodsport debater. Happy to be here. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, Josiah with Pondering Politics, liberal commentator. Looking forward to this conversation because this is like some of the biggest MAGA influencers I've ever encountered, and I'm looking forward to understanding a bit more.
Well, let's get started with the simple question. Is Trump a fascist? I know it sounds a bit generic, but this is the big talking point that kind of persisted for the past 10 years. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. He's authoritarian. He's far right. He's fascistic, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know who wants to start off first, but Luke, is he a fascist?
Yeah, you know, we can debate that particular label. I've noticed when I've watched past debates among MAGA folks, the benefit, or at least what they seem to thrive off of, is getting real into the weeds on a particular semantic debate. That's less relevant to me than going through the specifics of why I might call him that. But let's not get so focused on the label, but instead whether or not we find moral, whether or not we find.
No, let's get focused on the label. So listen, here's why.
Because you can't defend.
Well, first
finish
of
off
all,
my point though. You
first of
can't
all,
defend.
Luke.
Well, hold up. I'm going to finish this. You can't defend what he does. So then you try to distract from that with just really abstract
From your
label
lies.
discussions.
Yeah, from your lies.
What he's done or
So
lies?
you can't.
No. So first of all, hang on,
did,
Luke. Semantics are
regardless of the
super
label.
important to a debate for a reason. It's so that we have clarity in what we're actually talking about. So when you go, Trump's a fascist, yeah, it's very important that you clarify exactly what that means, why it means that, what the historic standard is that you're providing against
But I'm
that.
saying that debate is an interesting one. I've had it a bunch of times. Less relevant than whether or not you can defend the things he did factually, not the labels, the facts of what he did.
Why
Can
are you calling him a fascist then, Luke? If you're not
Tim
prepared to
brought that
defend
up.
it.
Tim brought that up. I'm interested in.
Well, it's so
You call him that, Luke. Why do you call him that unless you can defend
He is
it?
called in the media a fascist over and over and over again for 10 years.
And
He calls
my
him that.
question is, most importantly, then we can get to that.
Uh-huh.
Can you defend the things that we point to as a threat to democracy,
Yeah.
as anti-democratic, whatever
Authoritarian,
label you use?
yeah.
I just don't care about
Can you
getting
defend that
down.
he's a fascist or not, Luke?
I absolutely have had that discussion a bunch of times.
That's not what I asked you.
but
Can you repeat my
thrive.
question? I asked you,
can you
can
or
you
can you
defend
not
that he's a
defend that?
fascist?
We would point out things that we might describe as authoritarian or fascistic, even if you don't agree with the particular label. And that's what he's saying we want to talk about. So,
We
for
want to
example,
talk about the
did
facts.
he plot to overturn the 2020 election? Did he resist the peaceful transfer of power? Does he command a cult of personality? These are factual questions.
Does
he threaten the media?
This is not. I'm not going to make a whataboutism. I'm going to say, okay, let's start from that presumption that would make Trump a fascist. That would also make Obama or Biden or Kamala much the same.
Which we can
so?
discuss, which is false.
What you just described as Donald Trump would apply to them in
They
much the same
assembled
way.
fraudulent slates of
Yeah,
electors.
when have they ever resisted the peaceful transfer of power or plotted to overturn an election?
I believe this was the first election in 52 years. The Democratic Party has not challenged the election.
No, you're talking about the thing that is within congressional rules, which is you can
Object.
object to the
you
account.
can-
That's different than assembling from different states people who aren't the lawful electors, and then trying to get them counted by your vice president as the real one. That's
Right.
completely different.
But that is also a procedure.
No, one is a nope. You
No,
can't
fake
just
electors
get
are a
random
procedure,
people
yeah.
to sign fake forms saying they're the
They're not
real
fake
electors.
forms.
They were.
They're not fake forms.
You know why the people were
What do you
prosecuted?
think we mean by
in the
fake
7
forms?
states?
Like, we obviously
Right.
it's
So
not
you
an
need to
invisible
define
piece.
what a fake form is.
We don't mean by an invisible piece of paper. It was a fraudulent document.
Wait, that's
Yeah.
semantics, Tim.
Yeah.
Like I said, very
Right,
important
so,
to debates.
Because you
historical
can't talk
precedent-
We don't want to spend
core of
45
it.
minutes on what's
We'll
a
go-
fake form.
All right,
We would
so-
just, yeah.
The issue here is we're talking about a play upon precedent with what Donald Trump did, and the basis for what Donald Trump did and his lawyers in 2021 was built upon what happened in the election between Nixon and Kennedy, when Hawaii sent a non-certified slate. Would you call that fake as well?
No, in that case, this was before the certification had happened. The state
Incorrect.
sent 2 slates.
Incorrect.
In these cases,
Incorrect.
there were certifications by each state and then verified by the
pull it
governor,
up.
then sent to to Washington, and those were the ones Trump wanted to get counted.
Will it
It
come
did
up
not
on the screen, by the
represent
way?
the lawful outcome of the elections in those states. Y'all agree with that?
Agree with you about what?
That's what Trump was trying to do, getting electors that weren't the ones lawfully certified by the states to get counted.
No.
Okay.
What do you
Cool. Then.
Wait, what was he doing?
So we'll pull this up. Hang on.
Okay.
One step at a time.
So in Hawaii, and it just disappeared on me. Why does it do that? And I'm using Wikipedia, which I'm not a big fan of because it is oversimplified and often wrong. But it says that Hawaii official results showed Nixon winning by a small margin. Hawaii's 3 electoral votes were cast for Nixon. Acting Governor James Keelio has certified the Republican electors, and they cast Hawaii's 3 electors for Nixon. However, clear discrepancies existed, blah, blah, blah. The court challenge was still ongoing at the time of the electoral count's safe harbor deadline, but Democratic electors still convened on the constitutionally mandated date of December 19th and cast their votes for Kennedy. Would you consider those to be illegitimate votes because it had already been certified for the Republican?
And then
Can we keep
there we go.
reading?
Continue.
The recount completed before Christmas resulted in Kennedy being declared the winner by 115 votes.
There we go.
On December 30th, the circuit court ruled that Hawaii's 3 electoral votes should go to Kennedy. It was decided that a new certificate was necessary with only 2 days remaining before Congress convened to count and certify the Electoral College votes. A letter to Congress saying a certificate was on the way was rushed out by registered airmail. Both Democratic and Republican electoral votes from Hawaii were presented for counting on January 6th, and Vice President Nixon, who presided over the certification, graciously said, without the intent of establishing a precedent, and requested unanimous consent that Democratic votes for Kennedy be counted.
Right.
So the clarification here, let's make sure it's very clear.
Sure.
The Democratic votes were never certified. They were intending to certify, but because the deadline was approaching, they submitted false documents, as you described it, before certification was done.
No, because the circuit court ruled that the electoral vote should go to Kennedy.
Hold on. I got to stop you. The circuit court has nothing to do with the convening of Democrats to file false papers. Did the Democrats convene without a court order and sign
my
documents
point.
that were not real?
Was the president trying to get the ones that didn't?
Let's answer the question.
This is the question. Because
I
we're
asked the
talking about
question.
Donald Trump's actions.
Right, so we're starting with precedent.
We're
I asked
talking
the
about
question.
Donald Trump's actions.
I asked you a question and you
Did the
changed the
sitting
subject.
Did the sitting president at the time try to get, after the court cases had been resolved, try to get the Democratic
We have to start from the beginning.
electors counted? They didn't.
Let's start here. Did the
But
Democrats?
none of y'all are even engaging with that fact.
Are you gonna
This is
answer
what
the
you're
question
gonna
or
do. You're
no?
going to go and spin and spin and spin because you can't engage with the fact that you do.
You're pattering.
You know
You're pattering.
that Trump was trying to get Pence. What was Trump trying to get Pence to do?
You are pattering.
What was Trump trying to get Pence
You are
to do?
pattering.
All right, you
Can we
keep repeating
stop
that.
and go back to the debate?
Keep repeating that.
Sure.
This is the debate. What did the president of the United States do
you're
at
gonna
the time?
You're just pattering. All right, I'm going to say it again. We are reading a specific passage on what Hawaii did, and we are at a specific point in the logical question. Hawaii Democrats were not certified. They filled out paperwork. Pause. The courts had not approved anything.
At that
Were
point,
those documents, yes or no, real or fake?
at that point in time, the recount hadn't even concluded.
Yes or no,
But
were the
when
documents
Trump,
real
when
or
the Trump
fake?
electors met, Georgia had
Okay, you're
already
changing the
counted its
subject
ballots.
again.
I'm explaining to you the
I am not
differences.
asking you about
You're
Trump.
correct. If those forms had then been asserted as the lawful ones during the counting process, that would be fraudulent. Yes, but they weren't.
So they submitted documents that were unapproved, not certified to the federal government.
Which ones ended up being the ones that
Why
the
is it so
federal
hard?
government was going to certify?
Why is this so hard?
Oh my gosh.
Why is no
This
the
is
reason
stunning.
that it
Okay,
seems to be
I'll lay it out
funny that we're debating-
simply.
you're doing
You
an
guys,
hour
with y'all.
you see, this is the thing. You guys are trying to present some sophistry as to your argument.
No, you
Now,
can't
hold on,
engage
let me
with
make
what
the
Trump
point.
did. That's exactly what you're doing.
I'm going to
You
make my
can't
point.
engage with what
I'll
Trump
ma-
did.
I'll make my point. Stop pattering.
And then will you let us make our points?
So absolutely. Though the problem is I'm asking about Hawaii and you keep changing the subject to Trump. So let's go through Hawaii. The Democrats had no right, by your logic, to fill out this paperwork and submit it to the federal government as the certified slate of electors. Only after the fact did the court make a decision. Now let's go to 2020. If there is pending court decisions, and there were, Republicans doing the same thing Democrats did.
No, you're wrong. The circuit court decided that a new certificate was
After the
necessary.
fact, after the fact.
before Congress convened.
Yes, but after
talking about-
they had already submitted the documents. This is why I'm asking you, when you said they were false documents, I didn't say anything else. What makes them false? It's the same as Hawaii. If you want to make the argument that Democrats did the same thing in 1960, I will agree with you.
But we're not making that
In
argument because that's not what they did.
this is the point. In 1960, while there was still a recount going on and ongoing court cases. And it was so narrow, they really didn't know which way it was going to go. Then they didn't even submit those or try to get them counted. The sitting president at the time
Until a court.
Until it was determined. Trump's
submitted
case,
them.
he got all 7 states after this whole process had been concluded. It wasn't close enough for the recount to flip it. The recounts had concluded, and he was trying to get not let's have 2 standing by because we don't know how this recount's going to go, but from 7 states that we know the outcome of, but I'm making false claims of fraud on them, I'm going to get Pence to keep me as president by accepting fake electors. Tim, for a second, because we're supposed to be debating them, I think, could they also try to defend this stance?
Yeah, because you're
That
comparing
failed,
apples and
obviously.
oranges thing as far as I'm concerned.
That was silly.
If a court decided in one of the 5 or 7 states that Trump tried to peddle the false elector scheme, that if a court contested the Democratic slate of electors, then I think you would have an apples to apples comparison. But that's not what happened.
Yeah.
In none of the 7 states.
And it wasn't close enough to where they didn't know which way it was going to go.
Right, there
This
was
one
no
like
actual
hundreds of
ambiguity.
votes. Yeah. Andrew, anything? Myron?
Well, what's the argument here? Is it fascism, or because you guys went into a whole other
one of the
tangent?
key-
Because you guys went. I don't know if you guys. It started with fascism,
Sure,
but
let
then we
me
went
explain.
into Kennedy
One of the-
election in the 1960s.
I'll explain. One of the
Yeah.
key tenets of, again, I know you'll get really triggered, so I'm trying to stay away from that particular term, but we can say fascism, authoritarianism,
Fascism is based. I don't know what the problem is.
anti-democracy.
It's pretty fucking base. I don't know what the issue is, baby.
Is that legitimate or a joke? Because we can go into that. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we can go.
Now suddenly you want to talk about fascism.
One of the
Go
key,
ahead.
one of the key tenets is rejecting democratic principles and the democratic process.
According to who?
According to every single fascism scholar ever, and the definition.
Okay.
Do you mean according to who? Like what determines the democratic processes?
No, I'm asking according to who.
Yeah, sure, read it.
Yeah, go ahead. So far right authoritative. No. Pull up Giovanni Gentile. This would be the person that you guys would like
You
to
see?
use
You see?
as an authority. Yeah.
Just the audience
did we
can watch.
cite
They're terrified.
Gentile? I thought it was
saying
Gentile. When did we
this-
cite him?
getting
Wait,
into-
I'm sorry. Is
getting in-
reading a Wikipedia article proof of your position?
No, getting into a hyper specific definitional discussion. I don't care what you call it. Bad. Let's say bad. Bad is what I think Trump did. And that's what I'm trying to get you to see, not the definition, because I know you feel way more comfortable spinning around and reading about whoever. Instead, we can just talk about, regardless of the definition, is it good or bad to reject democratic results? Is it good or bad to threaten the media based on my principles, which value
What do you
democratic
mean threaten the media?
So Trump has repeatedly called for like investigations into reporters, into media outlets. He believes that the business licenses of like ABC and CBS, MSNBC, he says, should be pulled. I mean, you don't see these sorts of threats from the Democratic Party.
Okay, so let's get into them.
And even if you did.
Has Trump pulled anybody's license ever as president? Has he actually sent any government officials to do any investigations at any major?
So you
media
agree, though,
organization? Stop.
him saying it's bad.
Stop, bro. I just let you go through your whole stupid spiel.
You keep not
Has
making a
Trump
stance, though.
actually
Kinda boring.
done that?
Are threats not bad?
And first of all, hyperbole isn't a threat. That's one.
Trump said
And hang on.
CBS should be
And
taken off the air, should
two, what I want to see, so as Spurgley over here keeps on losing his mind, he doesn't want to get into hyper specifics.
Spurgley?
He doesn't want to get into hyper specific semantics because that would cause what we'd like to call clarification. That way, we're not talking past each other.
I don't think you're
right?
hearing what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just, dude, I just gave you your whole spiel. So anyway. The reason I want to get specific about this, about what fascism is, about whether or not Trump is actually a fascist, whether or not Trump actually enacted fascist policy, all of these things is because you guys, you can't sit on your shows and say, this guy's a fascist, he's an authoritarian, he's a dictator, he's a threat to democracy, and then give us nothing. Just like, oh, he used some hyperbole about
We
the
just
media.
talked about examples.
Tried to stay in
Yeah.
office despite losing an election.
Yeah, okay, hang on. We'll get to that stuff
We
in a
gave you-
second.
we
Right
gave
now,
you
we're talking about something else.
we
We're talking
gave
about the
you
media.
Sam's
Calm
stance.
down.
Is it acceptable or
Calm
not?
down,
That's
Spurgley.
what's so annoying
Calm
about
down,
these conversations.
Spurgley.
But Andrew, that's just a misrepresentation of our position. You say that we give you nothing. We're giving you specific things that he did, which we
Not
would
with the
describe-
no. You made this claim that
Where?
Trump has done bad things to the media. He wants to pull their license. He wants to take something away
He's
from
threatened to do those things.
Where has he done them?
So do you think that it's acceptable unless he follows through on it?
Yeah, I think that hyperbole is fine. I think that presidents use hyperbole all the time. I think that liberals use hyperbole. So, for
When is a
instance,
liberal
I'm going to give you.
president-
I'm going to give you an example. When you say Trump's a fascist, I think that's hyperbole.
Would you-
Because I don't think you actually think he's a fascist. I think that you just think fascism means authoritarianism. You don't even know what the fuck it is. You don't care about it. Hang on. So I think you're actually using hyperbole when you're talking about fascism in general. So when Trump uses it, when Trump uses hyperbole, when Trump is speaking this way, Trump bad. When you're speaking this way, that's fine.
Andrew, you're a smart guy. You should be able to recognize meaningful differences between just a random schmuck and then the president of the
Show me
United
the
States.
meaning.
Number one. Number two. Number two.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's hyperbole at all. We're talking about specific things, specific examples of things that Trump has either done or threatened to do.
Like he said, Zuckerberg should be in prison now. Zuckerberg's implementing policies that are more friendly to him.
So let me ask you guys a question. We're talking a lot about the threats, and Andrew asked about what he had done. Do you think if Donald Trump threatened to kill an American, that would be fascistic?
Well, fascistic?
Well, I mean, like, so
we're gonna
just to clarify.
Yeah, I know. It's really you're gonna try to go somewhere. Blah, blah. I want to stay focused because
we are being
no one's allowed to talk but Spurgley.
Yeah, come on.
No one's allowed to talk but Spurgley.
I'm trying to advance the conversation by asking a question to clarify the point.
I'm going to go back to what we were talking about.
You guys said he's threatening the media. Andrew said that he hasn't actually done it. So I'm trying to say, what if it was a more extreme threat that wasn't just, I'll pull a license? What if Trump said he would kill an American citizen? Would the threat of killing an American in and of itself, without the action of doing it, be fascistic? And this is for everybody.
Specifically. Like he's going to...
Like if Trump said, I'm going to shoot a guy on Fifth Avenue, I'm going to go do it right now. My point being, threatening to take legal action, we can argue whether... Like it seems kind of a legalese question. So I'm trying to shift it to, let's talk about an extreme action Trump could threaten.
Okay. Well, I still haven't gotten an explanation of how it's acceptable to try to block the peaceful transfer of power from Andrew, which is what I keep saying. You brought up the fascism word. I said, hey, I get that people get real bogged down, which is why I've had hours of discussions about that particular term. I came here interested to see if MAGA figures could defend the actual actions, not the label, but the actions. And I'm yet to hear you walk through any of them. We're getting a little bit to the specifics of the media, so I appreciate that. But so to answer your question, him trying to induce a feeling of fear among the media as it's working with his rhetoric, with clear intentions, some of which he didn't actually get done the last time, but like he wanted.
Let me explain why I asked the question.
Things. And I'm still waiting on either of them.
So here's why I asked the question about killing an American specifically.
Obama, I know.
No, it's because whether or not the government can pull a license is a legal question over whether or not they violated a public license, and so you guys are then arguing outside of the actual confines of a legal issue, so let's make it definitively an issue of illegal or legal.
Or we could talk about what Trump is.
Okay, the federal government grants public licenses with stipulations. If you want to debate whether or not they can or can't, that's a legal procedural question.
You understand you can have the governmental power to do something, but how you leverage it for the purpose.
This is why I tried shifting away to something more direct, like killing somebody. A threat to kill somebody is a direct question.
Again,
well, the government can kill people.
The government can kill people.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, this belies the point of it. Like, this idea that it can't be authoritarian or it can't be fascist if it is within the technical legal confines of the federal government. That's absurd.
That's not the point I'm making.
Of course.
Which is why, again, the semantics would be really important here to clarify what we mean when we say fascist.
No one's bringing that up. We don't care about the labeling.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up, Spurgley.
We're giving you specific.
Yeah, but that doesn't actually tell me what we mean by this.
Guys, sure, it makes for great clips, but we don't need the ad hominems. You called him boring. You're calling him Spurgley. We don't need to do that.
Oh, well, boring. I mean, the conversation.
I don't think you're boring.
I don't think you're boring.
I'm not.
I just thought the conversation was getting.
And he is Spurgley. Okay. So, but anyway.
Oh, call me whatever.
I'm actually happy to dive into this. You say that I'm avoiding your questions. I'm not. First of all, I'll answer them directly.
Sure.
It's well within Trump's rights, even if it was. Let's just say you're right. Let's just say I grant it. It's within his rights to set alternatives electors. He's well within his rights to do that. Tell me why that's even wrong.
Aren't people being prosecuted in states for participating in this scheme?
Who?
Is
the fake electors.
In all
wait, I got a question. Does the law prescribe morality?
No.
Wait, you said the right. Do you mean legal right or moral
yes
right?
Or no question.
Sorry.
No, I wasn't mad. No, I thought it was a good question.
So what's actually wrong with it?
So
why is it even problematic?
Because he didn't win the election.
So let's just say he didn't.
Okay. Well, then agree.
Stop, Spurgley. Let's just say he didn't. Let's just assume
Kamala?
it.
Just
Stop,
like Kamala?
Spurgley.
Could Kamala
Let's
have
just can I have a back and forth for
The election
2
was stolen.
seconds?
I mean,
without you nipping my heels.
This is interesting that we're even on this. Like, the election was stolen, guys. That is why
the 2024 election.
The 2020 election.
Oh shit!
It was stolen.
I mean, I'd like to just dive into this so that we can figure this out real quick.
Why was it stolen? How was it stolen? That's a big
Multitude of different factors here. I mean, I wrote it down. We got the mail-in ballot fraud.
That was a pretty sleek move there.
Dominion voting systems, vote counting observers, late-night ballot dumps, ballot harvesting, double voting, foreign interference, improper voter registration practices, manipulation by poll workers, geolocation data, surveillance footage, whistleblowers, vulnerabilities in election laws, suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, what else? I mean, I think anyone with any common sense would understand, because we're talking about the fascism and he challenged the election and all this other stuff. Let's talk about why he challenged it. It was
Because he lost.
no, because it was stolen.
Right.
It was
And
stolen.
sure?
There's a multitude of evidence to
remind
show
me which
that the
court-
2020 election, there was some type of interference to some degree. There's a multitude.
which court he was able to demonstrate that in.
Pennsylvania, in the lower court, ruled on the merits that they
it was
violated.
like a procedural, but not.
No, it was an actual
fraudulent
hearing
things
where
he's talking about.
the judge said that the Constitution of Pennsylvania was violated by the implementation of universal mail-in voting. The Supreme Court overturned the ruling.
and he
Well,
just
that's the higher court, right? So we should probably.
Well, so
defer to
he
the
asked me
Supreme
which
Court.
court did it. I said,
Right, I
lower
understand,
courts
but
did.
I assume he's referring to like a court's verdict or a court's
and
ruling,
you
which
just
actually
listed a bunch of like you brought up geolocation data. That was in like 2,000 mules, and they had to admit when
Yeah, but the point I'm
reason
trying to
this
make
is
is
a
that
terrible
there's a
argument-
multitude of different factors.
The reason
that
this is
come
a
into
terrible
why.
argument is because if I say, okay, well, then who got prosecuted for insurrection? You'll say, well, just because they weren't prosecuted for insurrection doesn't mean it wasn't an insurrection. It's
No,
like,
I'm saying you
oh,
actually have to
okay,
prove
great.
claims, not
just
just make
because,
them.
well, hang on, Luke.
yeah.
Well, just because he wasn't able to demonstrate that the election was stolen in a court because they threw most of it out on standing doesn't mean it wasn't stolen. It just means that we had a bunch of
What
judges
about the guy-
who went after it on standing. But there is a lot of evidence here that should be looked at. I'm not saying it was stolen. It's not my position. Okay, but I am saying that.
Do you have a position? Just out of curiosity.
I think it should be investigated, and it never properly was.
being investigated.
No, yeah. When Trump is in office, I think he should actually run a real investigation into it. I think that the idea that Trump, so Biden takes the White House, that there was a legitimate investigation done by the Biden administration for the guy he could have lost to. I think that that's ridiculous.
But doesn't that motive
Trump
work the
administration
opposite way
investigated.
too?
Go ahead.
Like doesn't that motive work the opposite way? Because Trump's position was before the election, it's stolen, it's rigged.
Well,
and during the
that's a fair criticism. I just think that you have enough third-party people which can be approached who could investigate this in a way in which it was fair.
they hired like third party groups. So like was it Cyber Ninjas
They weren't
and some
able.
others?
First
Ken
of
Block
all, they
was one
weren't
guy.
able to subpoena a lot of the evidence that they wanted. They had a lot of the circuit courts throw things out on standing. I do not think that this was a legitimate investigation, and there are some things that should be investigated. For instance, it's not a secure election to have people just dropping ballots unsecured in a ballot box. That's insanity.
Yeah, but respectfully, Andrew, like subpoenas and standing, these things are like valid legal constructs. Like you have to meet like probable cause for a subpoena. If you don't have probable cause to get a subpoena, then that's on you. And if you don't have standing to bring a case, then again, that's on you. Like
The problem is that
Are you saying-
Hang on, it's an allocate. Can I answer one question at a time,
I'm
dude?
trying to let you.
And I'm just like literally trying to talk to the guy. I think that it's fine. And I think you bring up a valid point, but I think when you have a Justice Department, you can instruct your Justice Department how to prioritize different situations. I think it's fine for Trump to say, listen, I still think that there was foul play in this election. And even if there wasn't, let's just decide it once and for all. Let's get it figured out once and for all. And instruct his Justice Department to begin investigating whether or not there was some type of
It at
foul play
least
going
warrants an
on.
investigation. And who conducted the investigation? You said
That's
they got
what
someone
happened.
got
His
hired.
administration-
Who did it?
A guy named Kim
Republicans,
Block
I think in Arizona
was
hired
an independent. They got like the
Cyber
Cyber
Ninjas,
Ninjas
yeah.
in Arizona.
So
the guy who
it
worked
already
for
lost
Trump's
because they don't have the authority to
administration-
properly do the investigation. You need
let's-
federal agents, 1811s, FBI special agents to do the case. That's how it goes.
Trump's
Direct law enforcement,
administration
right?
was
Yes.
the one investigating it that then came back to Trump and enraged him by saying we can't find any evidence. And
Because they don't have the authority to
They don't have the
properly
authority.
find the evidence.
Exactly.
This is what you're going to
need
do.
FBI
until-
agents to do it.
until the end of time is say there's never been enough investigations, or you could admit
Let's
that all of
advance.
the available evidence doesn't prove that. So
well, let's advance from the election
fine.
issue.
We can-
okay, so yeah, so don't just keep moving the goalposts. You have to admit that of the investigations that have been done and all the evidence that we've gathered.
The last thing I want to
can't
add
prove
on
it,
this
and
too,
you
like the to me, it's like, what about the standard? Did you call for investigations into 2016? What about 2024? Should Democrats, the next time they're in power, like forensically audit, the 2024 election? Would you be satisfied with
They
that?
was a landslide
do. They do
victory.
ask for these things.
That was a
Christ,
landslide
okay.
victory.
Okay, but we're off of
I'm
that.
sorry,
We're off
no,
of
no,
that.
advance.
So then we're off of that.
So-
but do you agree?
Well, I've got a topic for you guys based on what you have asked. So I want to ask a question. So one of the things that kicked this off was you guys asked about Trump's threats to the media.
Yeah.
Recently, Mark Zuckerberg went on the Joe Rogan podcast and said that he was getting phone calls from the Biden administration screaming and cursing at him, and that they were effectively pressured into censoring information. One of these stories in particular, Mark Zuckerberg said that the feds went to him and said, there will be information on Hunter Biden. This will be Russian disinformation. Knowing that they were pressuring and screaming at them, Facebook ultimately removed this story, which according to a few pollsters, they believe, did swing the election by a few, or swing public opinion on Trump by a few points. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on that story.
I was just to say, if there's like any evidence that the Biden administration threatened Facebook to like censor disinformation, that's fucked up, and I would condemn that wholeheartedly, 100%. But so number one, I think Zuckerberg was asked about this by, was it Rogan? It was like, do you have any like, evidence of that or any recordings? He was like, no, unfortunately. And to me, the other thing I really want to emphasize here, every administration, including Trump's, engaged with social media to the intelligence agencies to like say, hey, this might be a potential terroristic threat. This might be a violation of national security. This might violate your own TOS, number one. And number two, I recall during the Twitter Files congressional hearing, we found out that even on petty shit, that the Trump administration reached out to Twitter to ask them to remove a tweet by Chrissy Teigen, John Legend's wife, because she called him a pussy ass bitch. Like, there's never like a perfectly demarcated line, but I expect that there's going to be engagement between social media and the intelligence agencies of every administration. But when you're asking people to take down tweets because you referred to the president as a pussy ass bitch, that's weak.
So let me respond to this.
Yeah, but if they did, we'd be against it.
Dude, I don't like. Just calm down. You'll get a chance. So anyway, to respond to this. I think you make some valid points, but there's some there that aren't really valid. So yeah, sure. So let's say someone in the Trump administration or even Trump himself is like, hey, can you take this tweet down? I don't like it. It hurts my feelings, right? Fine. You can condemn it. You can say, it's an abuse of power or something like this. Seems like a kind of vague abuse of power. But there's a distinction when Facebook is being contacted by the Biden administration to tell them to censor all anti-COVID vaccination information, period. To take those things down, to throw people off who are disseminating this information, this and that. He says, this is now narrative building. This is, I want you, this giant, enormous media outlet, to build the narrative that my administration wants. And I'm going to use the coercive power of my office to do it. There's a distinction, I think, between that and I don't like this tweet, take it down.
So, again, if that's exactly what happened, I'd probably be inclined to agree, but there's no evidence of that. That number one, it was
just Zuckerberg saying it.
Wait a minute. What I mean is, so again, it depends very much on the nature of the engagement between the government and Facebook. Again, if they threaten Facebook, if you don't take this down, there will be consequences or something like that, besides just requests or even strong requests. There's also a public health emergency at issue here. So even if you disagree with what the federal government under Donald Trump, by the way, because a lot of this happened in 2020, and under the Biden administration, if you disagree with why they were pressuring it, to me, because that line is not perfectly demarcated, it's more understandable why the federal government would be urging social media companies to crack down on disinformation they believe will kill people. Well, just let me finish. As opposed to the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, pressuring a social media company because a celebrity insulted him. That is indefensibly stupid.
Okay, first of all, there's far less.
Let me
finish our exchange, dude. You'll get a chance. You'll get a chance, dude. You'll get a chance.
Let me quickly.
We're almost done with our exchange. Calm down.
How long is it going to be?
So anyway, look, this will be the last thing, okay, Luke? And then we'll take it over to you.
Great.
Anyway, this is called rational discussion. I know it's hard for you, but anyway, I think it's fine. I think it's fine to make the criticism. I don't want the president to call and ask to take down a tweet. Fine. Again, though, when you're talking about narrative building from the Justice Department, contacting Facebook itself, trying to construct a narrative, how much more fascistic can you get, authoritarianism can you get, then there's a counter narrative out here about COVID. There's a counter narrative here about some of the therapeutics. And by the way, Zuckerberg has since said some of the things that they were saying on the counter side were true. And they were asking us to take these things down. And we complied. And it's like, that's pretty fascistic. That's pretty authoritarianism.
Let me throw in one thing before we jump to Luke. I actually personally don't care for either story, COVID vaccine stuff. It's big, I get it, and targeting someone because they're personally mean to you is actually kind of worrying. The more concerning thing to me that often is missed was the censorship of Eric Charamella, which just by saying that name, YouTube might delete the stream. When
say it then. Shit, this is why I came all this way.
I think the
Just
point,
say Eric C. Yeah.
We'll send you the broadcast.
point needs to be made. When an employee of the CIA, I believe he was an employee, but when someone working with the CIA released information that resulted in the impeachment of Donald Trump, and the Real Clear Investigations released the report that the individual had been identified by as Eric Charamella, every major social media platform, I think Twitter did not do this at the time, would censor any information with that name without warning, without a strike, just simply remove it. So I think when we look at the censorship of big tech, we can talk about public information like COVID vaccines. It is particularly worrying to me that Facebook, in all of this, especially with this story, they had a portal made for the feds to report quote unquote misinformation. We're actively censoring stories of deep political merit, and they still have never accounted for it nor answered for it.
Yeah, so let me
And
jump in.
Zuckerberg says he was coerced.
Let me jump in.
He said he
Come
felt
on,
coerced.
Andrew. So as Josiah and I mentioned, we're not really interested in being blindly partisan as some folks are. And so if you have an example of the Biden administration crossing a line, we'll just denounce it. Strange that you want to do the same with Trump, which is a part of what I'm trying to flesh out here. But whenever the case was brought to the Supreme Court relating to some of this with Facebook, you might remember, and they ended up ruling against the plaintiffs who were saying they were unfairly censored because of the government being involved. And one of the things they found out was that the social media platforms, long before government was asking anything on COVID misinfo, already was implementing a terms of service stuff on that. And you can have an issue with that. And in this new world where we have these platforms, all this power, we're going to be grappling over what the right terms of service, probably not no terms of service, but certain rules. But we can all disagree on how that's structured. But whether or not it's like a violation of the First Amendment relating to the government getting involved, it got slapped down by the Supreme Court because there's just not the evidence that the platforms felt coerced. Because you will look at the percentages, even in portals like this one, where they would say, hey, we think this violates your term of service. And the platforms would go, no, it doesn't. Yeah. And they would say no. And then the government would go, all right, that's what we can do.
This is
I
new.
mean, censorship in general is a problem.
Well,
My
this is
position
new
censorship is
stuff.
bad.
What we're talking about now, this is new stuff which is coming out. Zuckerberg whistleblowing about a bunch of stuff we did not previously know.
Right.
You're referencing stuff that has come out, multiple years ago. What I'm saying to you specifically here is that there's no way for you to say, if you're going to say Trump is an authoritarian, he's evil, he's there to curtail the media, this type of thing. If the Biden administration's working in tandem, their Justice Department, trying to be coercive to Mark Zuckerberg to censor off information, specifically from conservatives, by the way. They were the ones who were mostly trying to give a counter narrative on the COVID-19 stuff, different political stuff, the J6 stuff. He said he was approached by the DOJ on all of these different things, and so was Facebook. It sounds like they're trying to create a narrative within one of the largest social media company platforms, which is out there, which benefits their administration. How much more authoritarian can you get than that?
And they banned Trump off everything right after.
Yeah.
Like they literally banned him. He got nuked
That was
off
while
the
Trump
internet.
was president.
That was while Trump was president, number one. But just real quick on this. So this, yes, he's referencing a Supreme Court case, which occurred. You agree? You're right that the Zuckerberg revelations
Same
are
stuff.
relatively
They're new.
recent.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's my question.
Sure.
Do you trust Mark Zuckerberg? Here's the reason why. I know you don't, Tim.
Fuck
I
no.
know.
No,
I know this.
Zuckerberg, man.
So I think it's important because a lot of people who even now are happy that Zuckerberg is adopting a more MAGA posture, for example. They don't trust him. They call him a fair weather friend because wherever the political winds blow. Is it possible, especially because as far as I know, he's not produced any corroborating evidence, that he's bullshitting just to try to ingratiate himself with you?
Yeah, so you have a couple of problems here, which is what would his motivation actually be to do this? So to be fair, do I trust Zuckerberg? No, of course not. I don't trust any of these tech giants. That includes Elon Musk. I don't trust him either. But
Fucking cheers, man.
But here's the thing,
Sure.
right? People do have motivations for the things they do. What would Zuckerberg's motivation be in expressing? And by the way, he began expressing this before he knew what the outcome of the new election was going to be even. Okay, he was expressing this before that.
Yeah, but he didn't drop any of these sort of
So the thing is what is his motivation here for explaining that the Department of Justice is reaching out and trying to censor various conservative content, except that he wants to be freed from the yoke of governments approaching Facebook and doing this because it creates all sorts of problems for him in his market, right? He actually has more of an incentive to tell the truth about this than he does to lie.
Well, I don't know if he's lying. I'm just saying, there seems to be, even on the MAGA side, an understanding that he has a credibility issue, number one. Number two, as far as I know, he's not corroborated any of these claims, which perhaps he will in the future. And number three, I think that he would have an incentive to say these things, certainly after the election, given that Trump won, but even before, when the outcome is in doubt, in order to, you actually said it yourself, to distance his social media company from any government intervention.
Yeah, but his incentive then would be to tell the truth about this. There could be, for instance, a guy like Zuckerberg has such a high profile. It would not surprise me if he was called in for congressional hearings, if they were running investigations into various forms of interference, things like this. He would need to actually have his story straight.
But he just said that specific example, this big headline explosive event where they called me on the phone and they were cursing us out. Rogan said, "Haha, those recordings would be sick," and he's like, "No, we don't have any recordings." So he's almost making claims specifically that as of this moment he can't possibly corroborate.
Yeah,
but the thing is, I'm not disputing that he can't corroborate those claims at the moment, right? And like you said, evidence could go out in the future.
Right.
What I'm saying to you is it's a matter of incentives. What's his actual incentive to lie versus telling the truth about this? Seems like he has more incentive to tell the truth about it than to lie about it.
Doing this,
he's self-preservation.
He's doing this in line with donating, Meta donating $1 million to
Trump's inaugural fund.
Trump's inaugural fund, and also speaking more positively about Trump, and also hiring Dana White, and doing a lot of things that will make Trump like him more. And Trump goes on video, yeah, I think this is in response to my threats. And so my point about bringing up that case was, I think he's just blowing it out of proportion because every time.
No, yeah, surely you give a shit about that.
I'm about to respond when he's done.
Yeah.
Every time it's been there's been a chance to prove that there's this coercion going on. They can't, which is why I brought up the thing. He is bringing new versions of the allegations, but they're just overinflated versions of what they were saying before, which they can't prove because in reality, unless something crazy comes out, that's not really the phenomenon that's taking place. But I do want to just note that both Josiah and I, have demonstrated on our own shows constantly that we can criticize the Biden
let's talk about
administration.
that.
I'm curious, and this is why we came here.
Hang on,
if you can defend Trump's things.
Before you shift it, I want to
like
respond.
we just gave a very nuanced
briefly,
take on that.
very briefly.
I want to give you guys the final point on this topic before we move on. So if you want to hit it, or
I want to hit it real quick, and then
I'll go after you.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
listen.
Sure.
I watched your coverage of what you just talked about when you were talking about Trump threatening Zuckerberg, right? You were reading or you were watching CNN pundits who were discussing this, and they left a critical part out, and so did you. Interestingly enough, Luke, which is where Trump said, if he's guilty of crimes. If he's guilty of crimes, that was the actual tweet. If he's guilty of crimes, then we will take action. You left all of that out.
Oh no!
No, you did.
I did. You're right.
You did. You left it all out.
And I know we're gonna move on, but just so you know, that's what Trump says every time. Obviously, if MSNBC,
you left it off. You left it out on
purpose. Well, and he didn't just say take action. He said imprison him for life, man.
If he was guilty of crimes,
shouldn't he be guilty of crimes?
Oh no! Did the president say if you're guilty of crimes, I'm going to imprison you? Oh my God!
What crimes? Which crimes merit life imprisonment?
I will note that next time. I promise, because it doesn't change the argument.
Yeah.
I stand by what I said.
Yeah.
I'll note that he said that's going to be his argument.
That's the crux, Luke. That's the crux. What's wrong with the president saying if you're guilty of crimes, I'm going to put you in jail? Nothing.
Would you grant that premise for Trump's convictions? Trump is guilty of crimes.
What crimes?
Falsifying business records, 34 counts. He was found guilty in a court of law.
Oh my God!
No, wait.
There we go.
No. Listen to me. But here's my point.
Okay.
You can think that those charges are bullshit, but this idea that it's no big deal if he's guilty of crimes.
And if the President Biden came out and said, if Trump's guilty of crimes, which he has, right, he should go to jail, which he has. Yeah, and you know what the liberals say? Hang on, the liberals go, yeah, absolutely.
I'll address this because
what are you talking about?
We can address this because there's a perspective issue. I think you make a good point that saying if someone's guilty of crimes, behind this view that there's a fear Trump will levy false crimes is a legitimate concern. The issue with the perspective is people do not believe Trump is legitimately guilty of crimes.
Sure.
And so the argument is that Trump is saying legitimately guilty of crimes, and the crimes that Trump has been charged with are illegitimate.
Yeah.
That's the perspective.
So we're saying the
Well, I
people he
think
chooses to
I don't
say
think
that
so.
about
I think the perspective
are people
here
he has political differences.
I think the perspective here is they're saying, isn't it, if Trump says this, shouldn't you hold the same standard with Democrats? But we do. Biden has said this multiple times. Biden has said if Trump's guilty of crimes, he should go to prison.
I'm
If
not
this person is guilty of crimes, they should go to prison.
I'll just-
like they say it. You know what I mean? Like, what do you
I'm
mean?
not aware. I'm not aware of Biden ever advocating on Trump's guilt or innocence publicly or saying that he should be in prison. My understanding is he's been about as fastidious as a politician can be.
He
Maybe
avoids
there's
that
some
topic
exception,
altogether, yeah.
but I'm not aware of it. And by the way, if
Wait, you think that Democrats,
Maybe he was asked,
the
but-
entire
you said
Democrat
Biden.
Party,
No, wait, whoa.
Biden too. Yes,
Andrew,
Biden too.
We've been having a good thing here.
Yeah,
Come on.
Biden too. If it is the
So
case,
have we.
okay, that
You guys have actually had the better
that-
thing, I'll be honest
that
with you.
any of these people come out and say if Donald Trump is guilty of, like, wouldn't you guys say that if Donald Trump is guilty of crimes, he should go to
No,
prison?
wait, yes.
Like, what do you mean?
Let me just lay a little framework here. I agree. Of course, the statement is uncontroversial. If someone's guilty of crimes and they're, of a certain level, they should go to prison, obviously.
Yeah.
But any person who unjustly imprisons people says that. And so we're saying of the people Trump chooses to say they should be put in prison or say they should be locked up or say that they should be targeted by the government, it's a very specific set of people he chooses, which is when someone wrongs him politically, all of a sudden now he randomly mentions if you're guilty of crimes, you should go to prison. When they're not accused of crimes, there's no reason to believe they've committed crimes. He'll just throw it out. Obviously, that would be his justification. Zuckerberg committed crimes. But he's just saying that to scare him because there's no reason.
That's
to
an
believe Zuckerberg has
interjection
committed
of an emotional state, not a provable one.
I don't see any difference between the
All
parties.
you're doing is interjecting your. This is how I perceive it. I perceive that he's politically targeting people because he said if you're guilty of crimes, you're going to
Let me
jail.
tell you this. If President, I'll just again throw you a bone here because maybe there's something out there that I miss. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of Biden's, every statement he's made. If he ever adopted the same sort of posture that Trump did of like
Fox News.
Fox News, a great example. They had to pay $787 million in the biggest defamation settlement in American history because it was very possible that they would lose that case against Dominion. We've never seen anything like that in liberal media. Biden could have, by Trump's own logic, said, you know what? Fox just had to pay nearly $1 billion in a loyalty tithe to Donald Trump. We never sent MSNBC or CNN. So you know what? I'm ordering my DOJ to investigate Fox News. And if Fox News executives are guilty of these things, we're going to throw them away for life or imprison them for life. Biden could have said that. He didn't. And if he did say it, that'd be super fucked up because I do think what you're
Unless
describing
they're secret subpoenas.
well, what you're describing
Which
as
wouldn't surprise me.
What you're describing as an anodyne statement to me takes a sinister tone when it comes from a person in power. By the
it's
way,
a sinister tone. So
when-
it's an emotional state.
well,
Obviously.
It's an emotional state.
you could reject. I'm just saying that I would hold Biden to the same standard if he did some of that shit.
Yeah.
Let's jump to this next subject. Donald Trump is expected to sign, some reports say 100 executive orders in a single day. It's going to be nuts. Many of them pertain to drilling and energy. Joe Biden just banned drilling. They say it's
Is it nearshore?
the near shore, that it's going to be difficult to overdo. To overturn those orders. We don't know for sure. When Joe Biden first got in, he did two major things. He shut down Keystone and he banned fracking on public land. Trump wants to reverse these things. So I'm curious your guys' thoughts.
Well, being soy liberals who believe in climate change, I would love to see a more, at least, diverse energy portfolio where we, try to embrace renewable energy as much as possible. I will just say that energy production under Biden achieved the highest levels in recorded history, even compared to Trump's.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what Trump is going to do. I don't
Including
know.
oil production, to be clear.
Yeah, including oil production. My God, at the end of his, first year, he was signing lease and permits for drilling and fracking at a rate that was higher than under Trump. He was just trying to quell new permits and leases because there was a huge backlog.
Got it.
Energy production's great under Biden compared to even Trump. I don't know what it is about these particular EOs that's going to be so difficult for Trump to undo with a stroke of a pen, because my understanding is if the president signs it with an EO, it can be revoked pretty easily with an EO.
Oh, Biden's was invoking like a old law, which is why, however that was
So it wasn't done. Okay,
with
gotcha.
the other ones.
Yeah.
I think Biden should get a lot of credit with that. The crazy thing is, as Trump was going out, a part of the deal that he was making with like Saudi Arabia and Russia we can pull up the specifics. It's been a long time since we've reviewed them, but was to reduce oil production because of the collapse
Before
in oil
COVID, I
prices.
think, yeah.
So a lot of the recovery to get back to the energy production we were before was pandemic related, in part deals that Trump was making to try to help the oil industry. Some made sense because of the collapse of the oil industry. But I will say Biden's doing a good job of both trying to progress green energy initiatives while not rocking the system too much energy wise, and that's why oil production is still so high. But we're getting green energy incentivized so that as we transition off, it's the least economically painful, but we can get there.
There's not going to be a transition off, so that's a long day away. And one of the reasons for that is because of logistics with semi trucks. You need the diesel engines, and that's that. So the thing is
You just wait till the first Prius.
when you're talking about
You just fucking wait.
when you're talking about fracking and things like this, yes, that is true. I agree with you that that Biden does have high energy output in the nation, but Trump got all that ball rolling when he moved into the fracking sphere. I mean, that was a big thing for him, and he brought it back in a big way. And yes, was he able to capitalize on that? Sure, he was able to capitalize on that, but you can't take that away from Trump. That he definitely pushed fracking in a very big way. The thing is about that type of energy, right? It's not even that detrimental. It's not that detrimental. What I would like to see, and here maybe we
Creates
can
a lot of
find
jobs too.
Maybe we can find some common ground here. I'd
about
like
to make
see
Andrew soy as fuck.
I'd
He's
like to
about join
see
us.
a switch to nuclear energy.
Yes.
That's the cleanest. That's the cleanest.
But
form.
Chernobyl, Andrew.
Yeah, but that's all Soviet panic mongering done by
with you.
guys who are like the fascists, the communists, the fascists.
See?
It's done by you guys. But
They agree
anyway,
with nuclear
Feeling
energy.
the
so
bromance.
we
Really
should-
good
like
moment.
it at
we
all,
should
yeah.
we should
We're
move
with you on
over
nuclear.
to complete nuclear energy.
Yeah.
And we should do that immediately. There's
Yeah.
no good reason not to. The chances that we're going to have these meltdowns, things like that, they're very, very rare.
Yeah.
When they do happen, we do have things we can do, which is bury it usually. But the truth is that it's very, very safe. It's very safe.
I
and
totally
it
agree.
Can power everything. It seems like it's a very good way for us to. There's the great compromise. Whether you believe in global warming, you don't believe in global warming, doesn't really matter because both sides can agree on the fact that nuclear energy is the best way forward, and it will reduce the greenhouse emissions so that you latte soy fuckers can be happy,
Keeps everybody
right?
happy.
You mean
And then-
we latte
yeah,
soy
and then,
fuckers, asshole. You
and
mean
then
we? We're
on
all
this side, I get cheap energy so that straight guys can go have families, right? So everyone's happy.
Yeah, so I'd love you to be on the same page with climate change, but honestly, I don't give a fuck. You're right. I mean, who cares what the motivations are? At the end of the day, we agree on policy.
Yeah. I will say, y'all agree that a lot of the right was lying about Biden's energy record, right? Because I still hear the energy production crushed under him and oil production. He stopped oil production all the
There's
time.
not a single fucking oil rig working in this
crazy.
country.
It's
Shit
crazy.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big part of my economic
Yeah,
message.
but I
with
mean,
Biden.
you're
It's like,
attacking
he's not-
positions. You
he's
should
not-
attack the positions of people in the room with you.
I'm not- yeah, but we're not
the,
attacking
not the
yet.
positions
Okay.
of
Oh,
like
all right.
some obscure right
You're like
winger.
really hostile. I feel like I'm being very nice right now. So yeah,
You guys are gonna be friends.
A lot of my economic message on
Definitely
Biden
not.
or analysis
We're gonna be.
does relate to. He actually has a really strong economic record. I would love to talk about that. Some of it's out of his hands. Like I think the Fed did a really good job of managing interest rates and getting us out of
We agree that the Federal Reserve should be
controlled by Trump. He has
Yeah,
no
no,
judgment.
fuck
as he
you,
said.
yeah.
But there was a really successful, which is why I think Harris lost.
Wait, you want the Fed?
False-
You want the Fed to stay separate?
Yes.
You don't want Congress to coin money again?
Well, no, I mean separate from like not under like at will fireable by the president. I think there should be a degree of independence. The way
Why?
it currently is. I just
They're responsible for our money supply. They need to be answerable to our government.
Well, I
They
mean,
are.
you could discharge the chairman of the Federal Reserve for cause, but I just don't think that they should be like a political appointee. I think that's fair.
Think about during times of, the reason that people thought that Biden was.
Wait, would you want us soy liberals like just like firing casually?
No,
There's
I
everything-
think that,
yeah.
I think that Congress should be in charge of the distribution of money in the United States, not a private banking institution where you can have a single guy who can raise or deflate the currency at will. That gives them so much unilateral power that they could be on par with the president of the United States when the entire world uses
Or
the dollar as the reserve currency. Having a single guy like Alan Greenspan who can say, here's this lever, we increase the money supply and inflate it, or we decrease it so that we can deflate it.
The control of interest rates can result in the president winning or losing an election.
I mean, it's
Well,
total.
that's why Trump
that's what we're
pressured
saying.
Jerome Powell to try to.
Right.
No, that's
cut
not
them.
why. He
But wait.
wanted to do
Wait,
what Trump
please.
wanted The reason that Trump wanted interest rates low is because his economic advisors were telling him something which is true. The Midwest is starving for credit. Okay, this had Democrat governors everywhere, all over the place, and they have been putting this squeeze on manufacturing there with business taxes, everything else. They can't get access to credit. What happens when the interest rates go low? Well, hang on. What happens when the interest rates go low? Everyone borrows money. The credit is there. Yep. And so what he was doing is he said, not only are we going to cut business taxes by 30% for corporations, but we're going to give them an incentive to borrow money to expand, right?
And didn't work.
But if we want to give them incentives to borrow money, we got to have a lower interest rate. His entire economic team told him that. By the way, it makes sense. And by the way, they borrowed a shitload of money. And a lot of these businesses did expand.
Please.
Was it? Like, please,
Well, can we please?
Well, no, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to. Will y'all then, regardless of that, because that's the whole thing, the stance on the Fed. But I shouldn't have thrown that in there. I'm just saying, will you acknowledge that whether it was Biden or his team or whatever, of the power they had, did a really good job managing the recovery out of the pandemic?
No.
Okay, because that's what I would love to discuss. Because we did better than our comparable economies.
Let's just say it objectively. The
Better than
people of this country
projections.
did not believe the recovery was good.
That's not that's their feeling. You're right.
Well, no,
The economy was listed as one of the top issues, and Donald Trump did win the popular vote.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you that people believed it was bad.
In general, the people did not believe the recovery was good.
Yeah, but to me, I agree. Yeah, but that's a separate issue. There's no question that Biden was not able to persuade the majority of Americans that his economic stewardship was good.
Because prices went up, as they did around the world, but we managed to get it down faster than our comparable economy.
The rate of inflation.
Yeah, but
down.
Explain that to me.
believe the reason for that is like me and Myron were discussing this morning. You do realize economics. I know you've talked to a Econo boy. He's a smart guy, right? And he'll tell you the same thing. It's faith-based. Okay.
Sure.
One of the things that's happened under Biden is a bunch of wars.
Yep.
Right? He's involving the United States in a bunch of wars. Now, you can say they're justified for him to be involved in these, not justified for him to be involved in these, but it shakes people's faith. And you have good shortages now, right? You have some good shortages coming from, Eastern Bloc country, possibly imports. I know, here's an obscure one, but ammunition to the United States from Russia, right? For private consumption.
They need it right now.
for privite consumption, you know what I mean? That has skyrocketed. Obama had outlawed it for a long time. So the thing is yes, it's faith-based. When you involve us in different wars, things like that, it shakes people's confidence. When we're not involved in foreign affairs, we're not involved in foreign wars, man, people feel way more comfortable when it comes to their spending habits, when it comes to expansion, when it comes to things like this, because they have that sense of certainty.
My understanding is consumer spending habits have been pretty incongruous with the public's opinion on the economy. They spent a fuck ton during this holiday. It's pre-pandemic levels.
There's a data point for clarification, though. I believe that was largely higher income earners were spending exorbitantly and lower income earners were not, which created an average or a median.
Correct.
But we've seen in almost every single economic metric, a miracle coming out of the pandemic, including purchasing power getting back to what it was pre-pandemic, which is stunning given the price increases that were happening. I think the economic.
It's not a miracle.
I think the economic because
what happened?
Let me finish my point. I've been really trying.
Okay, go ahead.
I've been really trying.
Yeah.
I will say so. We started outperforming even projections. Pre-pandemic, we outperformed our other wealthy country counterparts. We brought down inflation faster. We got purchasing power back. We got wage growth back. All these things.
Labor force participation, that's a crazy one, the highest
unemployment's
low.
low.
Bush.
And so in Western country after Western country, you've seen sort of an anti-incumbent bias because of price increases, which makes sense because people don't know what all the exact data points are. Understandably, they're just they're buying things, and they're mad that the prices have gone up. But that doesn't mean that the management of the economy was bad. It means that there's been a effective messaging campaign to convince people the reason prices went up was because of Biden, when it was really a global
you can't put it on
phenomenon
you can't put it on
he did really
propaganda.
well
you can't say the people were just propagandized into believing.
I think you meant
that the economy.
things.
That the economy.
Do you acknowledge any of the points I made at all?
I'm acknowledging.
Deal with any of them.
What I'm literally going through.
Why
all
do
of
we
this.
outperform the other countries? Why do we get?
Okay, but hang on. Look, first of all, let's go over it. Real wages, for instance. If you look at real wages under Trump, they were the highest that they ever were. So real wages, you can pull it up, highest they ever were. It was on a trajectory to do this. So it's been on an upward trajectory under Trump. It was high. Okay. Biden has taken advantage of a lot of Trump's economic policies. Okay, he's been able to take advantage of many of them. All that happened here, it was not a big miracle like you're putting it. You're saying, oh, it was miraculous. We were able to recover from this. Yeah, that's what happens when you take the chains off of industry and the chains off of people. What actually happened is this in reality.
Why did
The Biden administration was still pushing a narrative of masking mandates and other things that was coming out of the CDC, Fauci, and the rest of these individuals, okay? Largely, they did not move those restrictions off. People just ignored them. They just finally said enough, and they just began ignoring them outright. They ignored them.
Yeah, but what restrictions? I don't remember like federal restrictions on like just the American people. Were like
No. So what happens?
Couldn't get on a plane without a mask.
Yeah, what happens is
I don't think that was fucking up the economy.
These are federal regulations.
Yeah,
It's not just-
no. I'm sorry. I to clarify, just to be clear, I know that there were some federal regulations, like I think on the military as well, like with vaccines.
Yeah.
No, I just mean like over the broad American populace.
No. All of this was part of a greater narrative of it's your patriotic duty to do distancing. It's your patriotic duty to not give people COVID, and et cetera. You're going to kill grandma, right? This was all part of the kind of greater narrative, and it was very harmful to business. You saw that there was lots of big business winners and a lot of small business losers that came out of COVID-19.
So let me just clarify. This is a GPT generated image based on data. So take it with a massive boulder of salt. But it does correlate with data that I think Andrew has been pointing out, that a lot of people pointed out. I asked GPT to generate a graph showing real wages adjusted for buying power from 2017 to 2025.
Yep.
You can see that when COVID comes around, it does drop significantly. It increases in the last year, but then in the Biden administration, it did drop quite a bit.
Yeah,
So,
real wages
wages
increased.
may have increased, but buying power decreased. And that's not.
And
me
so
impugning
that's
the
what we're talking
integrity
about
of the
with
Biden
real
administration.
wages, right? It has to be on par with the buying power. That's how we're adjusting for the real wage. So under Trump, real wages went up more than anybody else in like 40 or 50 years.
I don't know where that's.
And so the thing is like what's really interesting when you look at the data set for economics, like no, people clearly know that their dollar wasn't going as far. And here's what they know. They know under Trump, I was doing better. Under Biden, I was doing worse. That's all you need. Like, you don't need any more than that.
No,
I do think it's fair to point out that COVID is anomalous, and the average person has no frame of reference for what a recovery should or should not be. All that really mattered when it came to the election was that people didn't feel good.
And listen, that's uncontested. I don't dispute that
Just so
at
you know,
all.
I don't know how to send this to you, but I would love to. I don't know. That is like the opposite of every single source I'm pulling up here that is seeing we've gotten back to inflation-adjusted wages higher than they've ever been. So that being like the exact wonky, I think might be a...
But again, I just want to say I'm not contesting what the perception of the economy is. Where I do agree with Luke, though, is it seems like when you compare us to other nations, how we recovered the soft landing from the pandemic, the fact that we avoided a recession, jobs, not only the bounce back jobs, but also the rate of jobs that increased per month under Biden were even higher than they were under Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're disputing the fact that we did better than a lot of first world countries when it comes to our
But even G7, Myron, respectfully, I mean, like even like
Only the
G7
wealthy. We're only
countries like
comparing to the
Japan, the
Yeah,
United
we
Kingdom.
were better than all of them. Yeah.
Oh, you said first world. I'm sorry, I thought you said third world.
Yeah, no,
That's
first.
my
Dude,
bad.
we were already
I
on
agree
the
with you.
upward
Yes.
trajectory
We agree with you
under
on that.
Trump before the
not
COVID
disputing you guys
pandemic
on that.
happened. All the numbers that most of the Democrats source, they sourced when the pandemic came in, the economy was shut down. Before that, the economy was skyrocketing. Yes, it was. And again, you can look at the real wages.
Well, I don't think he's disputing that.
Wait.
Yeah.
I was saying we would never be like, hey, let's compare Biden non-COVID to Trump COVID. Obviously, like when you look at end of Obama to Trump, a lot of times they'll do those comparisons because Trump just kind of inherited the economy that was
No, Biden inherited Trump's economy.
No,
That's what happened.
disagree. Yeah.
during an economic crisis. But yeah, you could pull up metrics, and the one that you just pulled up again, I hope
You just tell me what it is.
Other
I
ones.
can, I'll Google the title.
This one's U.S. News and World Reports. The other one is
What's the title of the of the?
okay. Here, let me.
You can type it. Google.
Yeah, look, I don't think we're disputing with you
Americans-
that like the U.S. was doing better than a lot of other countries, like when it comes to our purchasing power, et cetera.
Americans'
given the
inflation-adjusted
circumstances.
incomes.
I hear you.
I don't think we're disputing. We're not
Pre-pandemic.
disputing that. Like I see you're making the argument that like, hey, Joe Biden's economy isn't as bad as MAGA Republicans think it is. We can agree that we're better off than a lot of other countries. I mean, Japan is a great example where their yen just fucking tanked over the past.
We're doing better than China. I
We're
mean,
doing better.
Yeah,
I can. We're not disputing that.
I guess my point is, if Biden had done such terrible things,
Not in
to
trade
spike-
surplus, though.
to spike inflation, because that was the big argument, right? Like Biden made bad, irresponsible decisions that caused inflation to spike. That's the one I'm trying to get to the core of. Because if you agree, like, yeah, he kind of managed things fine, and you could say it was because of Trump, it was because whatever, but just acknowledging we got out of it pretty dang well. and then you can attribute whatever to credit that for. That's a big difference from the mainstream right-wing message, which is that Biden messed things up.
Yeah,
He
but the
messed things up
problem,
economically.
so the problem here
Depends on in what regard did he mess things up. Like for me,
Yeah.
for example, foreign policy, he fucked up. Right? The conflict with Ukraine and Russia, that actually drove up the cost of food significantly. No one talks about that for obvious reasons, because Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. If you strain food in one area, it's going to strain resources in other areas, and the price goes up. So I find it interesting because Kamala campaigned on, oh yeah, I'm going to go after the grocery stores for price gouging, etc. But the Democrats created that problem with bad foreign policy, allowing conflict to happen, not keeping Russia in its place. So I think the issue here is I see where you're saying, like, hey, the economy wasn't as bad given the circumstances. Okay, I can see your perspective on that. But we also got to look at other things like foreign policy, like we're talking about, where conflicts absolutely play into the price of food, the price of goods.
Energy prices.
So,
for sure.
On that point, the moment at which Joe Biden's favorability dropped below 50% was the Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Can we read, just since you pulled up, the inflation-adjusted median income of U.S. households rebounded last year to roughly its 2019 level, overcoming the biggest price spike in 4 decades to restore most Americans' purchasing power. So just since we put that other one up on screen, I want to make sure we add that to it.
Yeah, there's no way for me to dive into the details of these numbers.
Okay.
But
Just
Probably
I-
have all of it.
That's
but I'm-
honestly like both
I'm happy
graphs,
to
it's
reset
like-
this up if you guys want later for like a 1v1.
Well,
I'm happy to do
let's
it.
get into the foreign policy aspect of
Yeah.
it. So Joe Biden's favorability, his approval rating, it dropped because of Afghanistan. And during Trump, we had the end of ISIS, we had the Abraham Accords, we had attempts at peace agreements during the
Still
Biden.
had the Afghanistan war.
Certainly did. And it was during Trump's administration, the negotiated withdrawal took place. So you can argue both.
Why liberals screamed about it.
Well, you can argue both administrations were involved to some degree, to whatever degree you want to argue. My point is, Biden administration has been marked by war and conflict and crisis.
I think a lot of either the two main ones being Gaza and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, I think deserve two separate discussions. The Russia one, I'm not compelled at all by the Trump-initiated peace because we've seen sort of trajectory of Putin's activity that, of course, he would wait to see how much Trump could damage our international alliances and see the worst of what he could do before invading, and the pandemic hits and maybe that delays. I think there was an inevitability to at some point him going for Ukraine. So what I care about the most with Biden's response was, is he going to be very supportive? Because I do believe being really supportive of Ukraine is in our interest.
Based on what? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a waste of money
So
and time
do you
and
saying
resources.
oh, it was just inevitable? Like it was inevitable. He was gonna. No, that's not inevitable. Like
No, I agree. It's
Where
not.
you
I said
hang
you're
on?
inevitable.
Where are you even coming up with it? So what you did is you just grant yourself the starting position. It was
don't understand why you're
inevitable
so
that
aggravated.
eventually
let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Russia's going to attack Ukraine. It's like no,
let's-
that's not inevitable.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes on this one.
I'm saying
which is
watching the last couple decades play out.
Why should we be involved in Ukraine? You said it's in our interest.
Like, I don't think we should get directly militarily involved with Russia.
Avoid a
launching
hot war. We're all,
full-scale war.
all in favor
Yeah.
of that. Avoid a hot war with
Avoiding
Russia.
that. But in terms of how much we spend to be geopolitically, militarily competitive and prepared national security wise against Russia, generally, we're spending trillions and trillions and trillions over the course of decades for that purpose. This is a much more direct way to send what is relatively a small amount of money compared to what we're normally spending on the same cause to oppose the aggression of Russia that I think is destabilizing to the world.
Okay, but you do realize when you guys say we don't want a hot war in Russia, that if you're trading and supporting and funding the enemy of Russia that they're in a war with,
Sure.
that drastically increases the chances that you get attacked by that nation trying to cut off the supply, the endless supply of funding to the nation they're fighting with. That's just common war doctrine. Of course, that increases the chances of a hot war. Okay? It's silly. The containment method is not good. And ultimately, Russia is going to beat
Does
the
appeasement
Ukraine.
work though? Like, because to me, it's like there are two major camps, right? You say containment, the other one appeasement. Do you think appeasement works?
I think that ultimately, in this case, what's going to happen is this. Russia is going to take their objective. They're going to get a large portion of the Ukraine. Not all of it, but they're going to get a large portion.
Already
of it.
control almost all.
Yeah,
of
the
Eastern
chances
Ukraine.
the chances
Already got
that they don't is not good. And our generals predict it themselves, at least Donbass region, right?
Can you clarify just real quick? Do you think it will be because Trump forces a settlement like that, where basically where he freezes things, like, or do you think that even if Trump doesn't
No matter,
intervene.
well, no.
Yeah.
Intervention at this point would actually probably be better to negotiate this settlement rather than the lives continue to get lost until Russia gets it anyway. Now, if the Ukraine wants to fight to the last, there's not much anybody can do about it. But Zelensky has, I think, somewhat signaled that he's ready for some kind of ceasefire, and because they're running out of troops. I mean, this is the problem. They're running out of troops.
They're already using the ruble in Eastern
Yeah,
Ukraine.
I mean,
Like,
they're drafting.
It's done. It's
they're
cooked.
drafting 60-year-olds now. I mean, they're gonna run out of soldiers
And women.
Yeah, and women. So but they can't send them to the front line because they just get killed. Or
Don't tell Pete Hegseth.
or any, you know. But anyway,
Don't tell him.
That's my
the
point.
point
If
is
they
like
want
they're going to take this region no matter what. This is going to happen. This, though, when you talk about
saying there's an
containment
inevitability
of what's that?
Aren't you saying there's an inevitability to Putin wanting that land, like I said?
No, I'm saying that once he invaded, it's inevitable he wins it. Not that it was inevitable he would invade.
I don't know. I mean, I agree that if Ukraine were to say, "All right, we're not in it for this. We don't want it," then I'm not saying push them to keep going. But as long as they're saying we're going to fight, I'd rather them have a better shot to do more damage than the war goes on, but they're just getting crushed more.
Yeah, but the
that's-
reason why they
but
say that
remember
they're
that's a
willing to fight is 'cause we
bloodthirsty-
support them. It's like it's the
That's
same
not
thing
true.
with Israel. Like the
That's
reason
not
why
true.
they act the way that they do is because they know that we're going to give them money.
Zelensky
So if we had told them no more aid, it would force them.
Yeah,
to
what do you think
negotiate.
Zelensky's going to do? Go ahead and be like, "Oh, we're about to surrender." That would be terrible rhetoric. Of
Like-
course not.
No, I understand, but I'm saying that in the beginning of this, there was also the belief that there was inevitability to like 2 weeks or a month or whatever, all of Ukraine's done, and we've seen that hasn't been the case.
That is true. Like my and again on my channel I talk like U.S. domestic politics, so maybe I'm missing something. But my understanding was during the initial invasion, everyone from far right experts to I believe Hassan Piker was like, this is going to be over in like a week.
Yeah, there
Well,
was.
the only reason it didn't get is because of the enormous amount of aid and money and how literally the only reason Ukraine hasn't been taken is because of us. Like it's still the
Yeah,
only,
but I don't think
like,
we're
they would have been taken in a few days, and like Putin is like being nice about it. He could have just airstriked them to fucking
Yeah, but what I
oblivion,
want
he
to know
didn't.
is this: what do we get for our riches, and are we sacrificing lives in vain for our riches? That's what I want to know. And so the answer to this is like, you don't know, and you don't know. And so the thing is like, if it is the case that all of our generals project the chances that this region is going to go to Russia anyway, and we can save thousands or tens of thousands of lives in this conflict, it seems wiser to me to just back away from funding this whole nightmare.
And the mainstream
think we
media
just
did
bring
everything
on-
to not tell Americans the truth that they were losing. This is why, like, you look at like someone like people that were reporting, right, that were saying, "Look, Russia's going to win this," like Gonzalo Lira or Jackson Hinkle, etc. They were getting banned, censored, etc. It's not till years later the news is finally coming out. Yeah, you know what? We kind of were losing.
No.
Kind of were losing.
Yeah.
They did kill
so.
Lira.
Yeah, Lira was killed.
Yeah, he got killed. But like when he had his YouTube channel and he was putting out this information, he was shadow banned. Jackson Hinkle banned him, and they're like, "Oh, these guys are just Russian propagandists." Well, they're kind of telling the truth when it comes to this conflict.
the
Russia
opposite.
is winning.
No.
Then it took years for the mainstream media to say, "You know what? Yeah, they are kind of winning. We should probably maybe have a ceasefire."
No,
like, it took years for the American public to
Those
figure
were the
it out.
guys we're talking about that kept falsely predicting it's going to be over here and then here and then here, and they kept being wrong.
But
Ukraine
they were
kept being
correct.
Way better.
But they were correct that Russia was
Most
decimating
people
them.
don't.
They were correct about that.
Well, that's. I mean, Russia.
But that's important. That's relevant to American
Russia
sentiment to fund the war.
Is being
Wasn't
is being
Russia's
far more
military pretty
deficit-
fucked up as a
Look at-
like that's
yeah, look at how many people are dying in the Russian military, which is tragic. But how much their military is losing as well.
But my point is
All
that
for them to
Hey,
just
but
take
they can
that much?
sustain it. I mean,
yeah, they
that's
can
what
sustain
Russia's
it,
been
yeah.
doing. Russia,
I think Russia won already.
Russia did. I mean, they
won years
repelled the
ago.
Germans
Yeah, they won
with a
years ago.
million peasants. They don't care. They'll continue to throw soldiers into the meat grinder until they get their objective. They don't care.
Famously, Russia's strategy is referred to as the Zap Brannigan strategy, where he sends wave after wave of his own men.
Yeah.
like
battle.
Exactly.
Gonzalo Lira was
Until the
reporting this
enemy
stuff
runs out of ammo.
when they
right?
first
Like
invaded.
literally.
But they're not
early
yet. We're
2022.
sending them ammo.
When they first invaded in early 2022, I remember watching Gonzalo Lira talk about this. He was like, "Yeah, they're gonna win, etc. They're winning," and he was getting shadow banned. The American media wasn't reporting it because they didn't want the American public to know that, look, we're funding this war and we're fucking losing. It wasn't. It took years for
Those
the
are
American
like-
public to finally figure out they're losing.
I'm willing to have a nuanced conversation about how long we should be willing to do this, how inevitable is it? But that point's not true at all. The overwhelming mainstream media consensus was that if Russia invades, it's all over. And then it was like, whoa, Ukraine, now years they've
Yeah,
been
but they
able
were
to
holding back the
sustain-
figures
No,
and
no,
not
no, no,
being
no.
honest about them losing.
Ukraine lost.
I mean, they didn't, but
They did. Do you see the map in front of you?
look at how much of Ukraine is not taken.
Look at all that non-red Ukraine.
What was Russia's
the objective
stated
wasn't to take Ukraine, though. That wasn't
Right, right.
their
What was Russia's
objective.
stated objective?
So if all they're interested in is the eastern portion,
It's the land bridge to Crimea.
they've been
And
they've
they've
been
ta-
there.
They've taken it.
They've taken it.
Right.
So
We're not what. Of course,
That was their purpose.
Of course,
That was their purpose.
I'm
They
shocked it
protect
took
the
this
ethnic
long.
Russians.
the Russian objective was attained a couple years ago.
I don't know how
why
that
is there
at
still
all
fighting?
relates to what we're saying.
Again,
Because they can take
they-
more.
Ukraine
no,
wants
no,
it
wait.
back.
Why is there still fighting if they achieve
Because
their objective?
Ukraine wants the land.
Right, and
back.
as long
Right,
as they
there-
do,
and
the US
we
is
just have to
providing
give
funding.
Yeah,
them
but
money.
that's what I'm saying. That then you can't. I take your point that they have the land seizures that they sought, but it's clearly not secure. There's a reason the conflict's still going on. Russia is suffering casualties from.
let's clarify.
From
Russia-
Ukrainian resistance.
Yes, Russia has secured its objective and is now seeking to defend its position.
I still don't know if like secure because again,
But
it doesn't seem particularly secure. But like,
No. This map shows that Russia has taken control of the Donbass region.
Yeah,
It's a
I
very
see. I
polarized-
see what
We're
you're
with
saying.
you
yeah,
on-
I understand what you're
yeah.
saying. You're
I'm
saying,
with you.
look,
That's
it's not secure if they're still fighting a war of it. That's a fair
Yeah.
point.
What I mean to say is they are in control of this territory as per the battle maps that are presented by the BBC
Yes.
and by Arcus.
No, we agree with that.
And
Yeah,
so,
of course.
if the U.S. wasn't supporting Ukraine, the war would be over.
yes.
That I disagree with.
Well,
based
well,
on
I mean,
every
they would
claim
still
ever
they
that
would still
Ukraine
be
has made, but-
resisting, but I think the resistance would be based on my limited understanding, minuscule in
Yeah,
comparison.
they don't
to
have
their
the
support.
they
Yeah,
don't
they
have the
wouldn't be able
weapon
to do
systems.
anything. You know what I mean?
But they would. I think they're also receiving. Aren't they receiving even more from European allies? Like,
Yeah.
again, this is
They
where
get a lot of aid. Yeah.
Yeah, even outside the United States, my understanding is like they're getting a lot of shit from the United Kingdom, the European Union,
everywhere.
and yeah.
Sure.
So
Because if those other countries, like if Ukraine sees this as an ultimate, fight to the death for their homeland, and then other European countries feel threatened by Russia doing this, and they're going to be supporting Ukraine somewhat already, and Ukraine's going to be fighting, regardless of if we send aid, I'd rather them have our aid and do more damage to Russia and maybe hold back some Russian aggression further than standing back and Ukraine gets even further.
Yeah, so basically, that's a very bloodthirsty position for a progressive, isn't it? So
Yeah,
the
that's-
idea,
that's
so the idea here is,
More
I
people would die
want
if Russia
American
could just-
funding to go to Ukraine so that they can spend their soldiers right in what looks to be a fairly fruitless battle long term to get slaughtered over and over and over again, so that you may not have to deal with the Ruskies later. And it's like, here's the thing. You're going to have to deal with them later, and here's why. They're a nuclear-armed nation. Did you forget about that part?
Yeah.
They have nuclear bombs and intercontinental ballistic missiles. And it's like, you're going to have to deal with them, whether
not
you
gonna
like
be-
it or not. This idea of the ground pounders in Ukraine who are battling it out in the trenches, all of that is actually beside the point. They're a nuclear-armed nation capable of intercontinental ballistic missile
Right.
technology. It's
Exactly,
like,
which
you're
is
going
why
to have
we
to deal
can't
with them.
directly involve ourselves militarily with them because it would be nuclear war. But
Right, so spend other
but
people's
You're
sons.
saying blood. You're saying bloodthirsty. My point is, as long as Ukraine would be fighting, our aid can prevent more deaths.
Just to
How?
clarify,
No, it actually
How
creates
is our
more
aid
deaths.
preventing
Creates
more
more
deaths?
Defend
let's
themselves
we
more
gotta clarify.
effectively.
Our aid is the reason why they even go. Why they're
let's
fighting.
clarify.
Like
We
when
gotta
they have
clarify
certain
one
equipment
point.
that allows them to not even have to send troops, like whatever Biden recently sort of sent.
Let's clarify something. It was the U.S. that sunk the flagship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. You can say Ukraine pulled the trigger, but Russia doesn't see it that way. It can be the perspective of the narrative in the United States that the U.S. is not involved. Russia does not see it that way. The U.S. provided missiles like ATACMS, provided the training and the equipment, and then asked the guy standing next to them, special forces in Ukraine, press that button to blow up the Russian
I agree.
flagship.
I agree.
Russia doesn't see that as Ukrainian attacking.
I don't.
Well, they do because they're not attacking. They're not like
Russia,
Well,
Ru-
well, I think they're
Russian
attacking
state
us
officials
within the United
and
States.
media have already said we are at war with NATO.
Yeah, I mean, they always believe that. But I agree, they do believe that we're. I agree with all that. I just don't think.
Right, so let's put
that
it
means
simply.
that we're actually going to get into a military conflict with.
in no courtroom would you be able to claim that you were not involved in the murder of a person when you handed the gun to the guy, asked him to do it, and told him to pull the trigger.
And we gave them the equipment. Of course, I'm with you.
So that means the U.S. is literally at war with Russia.
And then I disagree that we technically are neither.
Yeah,
We're not legally at war with Russia because Congress hasn't declared.
Yeah, we
And-
weren't
and
legally
we
at
don't-
war with Vietnam either. It was a police action.
Well,
There was
and
no
we don't feel
declaration of
threatened
war.
that we're going to have to sacrifice American soldiers to invade Russia or Russia's going to do that to us. There's not really a threat.
First of all, Luke, I think it's very naive on your part to pretend that there's not American special forces who are in Ukraine right now doing all sorts of sabotage mission, training ops, all sorts of things. Like, it's totally naive to believe that in every other theater, that we're involved in, where we're training people in advisory roles.
I think you think you're debating with someone.
We're always.
That's not what I'm claiming.
Well, you say you make the claim like no boots on the ground, no boots on the. It's like there's already boots on the ground though. We already have. I guarantee we already have special forces boots on the ground.
If you don't hear what I'm saying, then
Look, I think foreign wars in general are a big waste of money. It's not a W for us. It's an L. Let's just be honest here. This whole situation with Russia and aggression, containing it, it's to fund the military-industrial complex. We need to be able to rationalize and justify our armament. So we need to go ahead and have this conflict with Russia, when in reality we need to, figure out some type of diplomatic middle ground with them versus having an issue with a nuclear-armed power.
Capable.
I think peace is the way to go. But we want to sit here and substantiate our military-industrial complex, which is problematic.
Okay, Russia. It's so strange. Russia was the one who violated peace. We had peace, and then Russia made it no longer peace. And then they were fighting, and we went, I mean, a little bit before
we were promising not to expand NATO for decades, and we keep doing it.
Actually, we never formally promised that, but
formally.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a memo. It wasn't a treaty.
Yeah. Number one, but number two, was that?
Anyone
we didn't invite Ukraine into NATO. Is that what you guys talked about? There was no offer.
Before they invaded, Ukraine specifically said, we're not going to be we're not entering NATO, and the United States was like, yeah, it's not happening, and Russia still invaded.
It is not.
Let's clarify. The issue wasn't NATO. The issue was the European Union. And so Vladimir Putin went to Ukraine and said, if you open up your borders to trade with Europe, and we have open borders with you, European goods will flood into Russia and it'll destabilize our economy. So you have to choose either Europe or Russia. The issue was Ukraine largely was like, you mean we get access to the Schengen zone and European trade, but we lose Russia? Russia got pissed and said, no, hold on. We need Sevastopol. We need Crimea. We can't lose that to the West. Now you can make the arguments about what you think happened with the ousting of Yanukovych. A lot of people believe that it was U.S. aid and the CIA that went in to help foment these groups that ultimately stormed his mansion and ousted the guy, forced him to flee to Russia. But this bubbling conflict in the country and political destabilization was definitely both Russia and NATO, Western forces vying through political means to gain control of Ukraine. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that all that dynamic is very important, and I don't think Russia should have a say in.
Yeah, so it's not like they just invaded out of nowhere. You know what I mean? I think it's important to understand,
what.
Yeah, that is. It's what you were just you kind of just back off immediately on your own position right away.
You clearly don't even know what my own position is. I'm saying all of those things contribute. That doesn't make it justified. Someone can be.
No, you said there was peace, and then Russia violated it, and then backed off in the position the second it was clarified by Tim.
Wait. Hold on.
There. But
what are you talking about?
I don't think that was a contradiction.
That was
you could say.
Okay.
You could say that.
Our position, I think, me and Andrew's position is. We need to stop sending aid to Ukraine and end this.
Yeah, we got your position.
That's our
position.
position.
You can violate peace for a reason. He had a reason. I just don't think it's a justified reason. We shouldn't have started a war over it.
Let's ask the simple question.
Can you acknowledge there's a difference between what you just said, Andrew?
No. Your implication was everyone was minding their own business and getting along fine, and then the Russians moved into the Ukraine, right?
Everything was perfect.
Let's ask the question that Myron brought up. Should we cut off the aid and just say no more involvement in Ukraine?
Zero.
No, I don't think so.
I think end all aid, stop it, and end the fight now. We need to end it now.
If Ukraine wanted to end the fight, then we could figure out what.
Wait, who cares?
We're not at the mercy.
Hold on. Let me say this.
They're the ones fighting. We're not going to start.
If we're funding the conflict, we're giving them all the aid. We dictate what happens. I find it interesting how we let these other countries like Israel, Ukraine, dictate our foreign policy. We give you the money. We tell you what it is. Fuck that.
It's not true. Ukraine would, or we
tell Zelensky, hey, dumbass, we put you in power. You do what we say.
I just want to let me ask you these questions. This question.
Wild.
What is the strategic, economic, or otherwise benefit of our involvement in Ukraine?
My understanding is
zero.
That
well, go ahead.
Fuck you.
Yeah. 0 8.
But also,
zero benefit.
My understanding.
Best answer of the debate so far.
Fuck you or zero. My understanding is, this should not be the primary motivator, and I'm not sure that it is. But if you take just morality out of the equation, looking at Russia as a geopolitical rival, they have been weakened as a consequence of this. Now, you can say that they're going to win, and certainly they have still the stronger military, but they are not in a better position now than they were prior to the war, number one. Number two, we consider Ukraine an ally. We consider them somebody that, we have diplomatic and economic incentives for them to succeed. Also, by definition, the European Union as well. So it seems like we have diplomatic and economic reasons and to try to weaken Russia, number one.
Yes.
But I just want to be clear, at least for me, and I'm sure Luke would agree, if Ukraine did not want to fight, I don't think we should be forcing or coercing Ukraine to fight. If they decide, you know what, fuck it, we've resisted, let's have either a settlement or just wave the white flag all the way around. I mean, I think it would suck that we were empowering and rewarding Putin, but at that point, yes, the aid should be cut off. But my understanding is they still want to fight and they just need help. So
Who is they, though?
Ukrainian people, right? Isn't there in the Ukrainian government?
Zelensky wants to fight.
Well, I believe that largely the population has either resisted conscription or fled the country.
Yeah.
Not the majority, I'm saying, but
Oh, I'm sure there's people doing that. Yeah,
I mean, they're drafting women and elderly. At
They're not.
So I don't
could
think
pull a
people wanna
polling.
fight.
I'm sorry.
I'm
You're right.
curious.
To be clear,
People.
I'm sure the number of people who want to pick up a gun and fight Russian soldiers, I'm sure that number.
And that's
has
what matters.
diminished.
Not the puppet that we put in place.
No,
I
not
agree,
even-
it's
not even
just
Zelensky.
leaders.
Let's not even
It's
call it
public
puppet. Let's just say
opinion. It's
the
public opinion.
government of a small group of people. Do you guys believe that the small government, this limited amount of people, have a right to force the people of Ukraine through conscription to go fight a war?
No, I'm saying. Well, I mean, yeah, if they have
or no?
drafts, they could probably draft people. Yeah.
So the question then becomes, when you say
I'm
Ukraine
saying-
wants to fight, you're talking about
No.
the
That's what I was about to
oligarchs and the
specify.
politicians,
That's what I
not
was
the
about to
people.
specify. Yeah, I was about to
Well,
specify.
what they're
No,
actually.
Wait, just let me specify. If
and
public opinion
real
was
quick.
against it, I would say, well, they
And it's an important
democratically
thing.
should listen to the public opinion.
The government of Ukraine has largely been described for decades as an oligarchy. You guys know how the oligarchy formed
And
in Ukraine?
corrupt. Super corrupt.
Let me answer your question.
I'm
You
making
asked the question.
Sure. I'm making a point about the structure of the government. That's why I asked the question. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the general story is that you've got these Soviet factories, for instance. They run up the chain of command through the Communist Party. That's how the Soviet Union ran. When the Soviet Union collapses and Ukraine effectively becomes its own state, where does this factory answer to now that the party has been shattered? What happens was, there's one story of a guy, one of the oligarchs, got a couple of his buddies with some guns, walked into the factory and said, "Who's in charge?" And I'm the foreman. And they say, "Okay, we're going to take care of everything for you. We're the bosses. This is our factory now." And they say, "Well, what does that mean?" It means all the supplies you need to come in and make the factory work, we will take care of, but you answer to me. And the worker said, "That sounds great to us, actually, because we don't know who we're supposed to answer to." This created a massive wealth gap in Ukraine for decades, where you had a very small group of ultra-wealthy individuals. One of the most interesting things I found about Kiev is that the price of a condo or a house was comparable to a house or a condo in the United States, despite the fact that these people were making about $400 a month. So with the government being largely oligarchic, the question of whether or not Ukraine wants to fight this war is an interesting one, and I'm curious what you guys think.
Yes. So back to just public opinion. If there was an overwhelming opposition within Ukraine among Ukrainian citizens for continuing this war, then I think that they should resolve it because democracy.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is not something I focus on my channel. So for all I know, there's compelling evidence that the public sentiment is, fuck it. Let's just, again, either negotiated settlement or concede the land.
Wow, 25% of the population has been displaced, with 7 million as refugees fleeing the country.
Yeah, man.
By the way,
they don't want the war.
there's another
Again, it's
issue.
American media that controls it. Like, yeah, we're going to go out and fight this war. We got Zelensky, and who's obviously like a puppet of the United States. It's the United States saying we need to weaken Russia at any cost. If it means Ukrainians die and we spend a bunch of money, we're going to do it. The people don't want the
This
war.
brings
Yeah,
up.
so it
this
looks
brings
like-
up a more compelling question I'd like you to answer to, though, Luke, which is this:
Wow.
Do you think ultimately that Russia likely is going to win the conflict with Ukraine and get at least a large portion of Ukrainian land? Do you think ultimately that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Then the entailment actually of your position is this: when you say weaken Russia, that you want the United States to fund an oligarchical government which will continue to draft the citizenry of the Ukraine to go die to weaken people you don't like.
Exactly.
That is the action. Hang on. I just want to make sure. What did I just say there that's incorrect?
All of it.
Okay, which thing?
Yeah. So I keep saying, and as I'm polling myself, it's been pretty quickly dropping year by year public support for this. And so as we get less and less support among Ukraine, because I'm not saying they should die for us if they don't want to. And as more and more
None
people
of them
don't-
want to die for us, bro. Nobody wants to die for us.
some of them are willing to die for their own country, and I'm
For
saying
their country,
if
yes.
they're doing
At
it
least
for
not 10 million of them.
if they're
quarter
do-
of the country.
Well,
isn't.
part
Yeah,
of
but I'm
that's
sorry. Yeah, but
moving out,
that's what he meant. Like he's saying
But
that
you're
this-
saying you want American treasure to prop this up in order to assist these war fighters for your interest to go die on behalf of an oligarchical nation, which
Russia?
is drafting their own citizenry. You want to pay for that because it weakens a geopolitical rival of
I
yours.
think you correct me if I'm wrong, because I know this is my position. I think the position is we should be continuing to support an ally as long as they want to resist an invader, a foreign invader, which incidentally also benefits us directly because it weakens a foreign adversary, that same invader. For me, the calculus changes tremendously if it turns out that, that Zelensky is forcing the Ukrainian people to resist. Like they don't want
Well, he
don't
is,
want to
though.
resist.
He is,
anymore.
and that's our
no,
point.
he's I understand that he is drafting people.
Yeah, what's a draft?
He's kidnapping them.
He's-
He's literally kidnapping of age men and taking them and forcing them to be in the military.
There are people who are trying to leave as refugees who are grabbed and then dragged back kicking and screaming.
The people don't want this, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we would.
There's videos of this stuff.
Well, no,
So we agree then.
You see the videos of the women being captured
beginning.
too? It's nuts.
But
You guys are
let's just
saying-
start with the fundamental question. What is a draft?
you are taking of age people and forcing
Compelling
them, against their
them
will.
into
You're
service.
compelling them, yes, to fight.
Yeah, so the thing
Yeah.
is like when you say, if it turns out this government is forcing people, like, what are you talking about? The entailment immediately of I'm drafting your ass is that you're being forced to go fight when ordinarily you wouldn't. Why wouldn't you just have a volunteer armed forces instead of a draft? Because you're compelling a populace or a group of people who doesn't want to fight to go do it anyway.
No, I understand. So let me ask you if you recognize any distinction between this, because perhaps this is a distinction without a difference. Do you recognize that there are people who do not want Russia to conquer Ukrainian territory or Ukraine writ large, but are not prepared to pick up a gun and voluntarily attack?
Of course, sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Is that a distinction worth noting? Because what I'm referring to is the former, not the latter. I totally concede that based on reports, there's been drafts and conscriptions for months,
No.
years. Okay, but that my understanding is that the public sentiment of the people in Ukraine is that they don't want Russia to take this territory. If that's wrong, then my interest in funding the war, or whatever it is, or propping up Ukrainian resistance to Russia plummets dramatically.
Oh, wait a second. What you're talking about here it still brings up another question, which is, let's just say it's like 55% or 60% of the nation, right, who wants this war, right? They want to keep they want to keep themselves sovereign.
Yeah.
Let's just say that that's all the public
like a small
sentiment.
majority, or like
A small majority or whatever. They can institute a draft against the minority who can fight, which is going to be kids, mostly young men, right? That's going to be your warfighter age, 18 to 25. Obviously, they're going to be outnumbered by other people, so they can compel their citizenry to go fight, because they don't have to, right? But ordinarily, they would not be able to do this, nor do this compelling service, unless they were enabled by the treasury of a large first world nation, which is supporting it. So it seems like you have a moral quagmire here, a big problem.
Oh, there is. Like,
a big problem on your end of thinking that, hey, we can use this as a buffer against our geopolitical enemy, regardless of who it
I think it's
kills.
also very important to know Eastern Ukraine is ethnic Russian mostly, and a lot of them do want to be a part of Russia.
So I do want to move on unless you want to make a quick final point, guys.
sure, we could talk Israel.
No, I think as far as
Israel.
again,
do
I'll
it.
totally concede that this is a very morally ambiguous conflict. That you pointed out that even if a majority of Ukrainian citizens want to resist Russia in the sense that they don't want Russia to come take over,
They're not the ones fighting.
I think any draft or conscription, at the bare minimum, and I'm not a debate philosopher like you are, so but is morally ambiguous to say the least.
60 years old.
I just think that my understanding is Ukraine wants to resist Russia, and I don't have any issue with the United States continuing to supply the means by which.
So let's move.
If the premise,
I'll wrap it.
If the premise is wrong, I would be happy to revisit.
Let's talk about Israel.
Can I? My closing is not controversial. Another reason I agree. Public support is dropping. It's kind of complicated for what they support, what type of peace deal they support, what's being taken, all that. And I have the same stances from when we started based on public sentiment. And I understand what you're saying. I'll note that I also think for leverage to get a better deal for Ukraine, it's important that the United States stands like we're going to support them to infinity and beyond, so that Russia doesn't feel like, wait, if we just wait out American support for Ukraine, we can take even more, right? So that they believe, gosh, we're stopping up at this line. Okay,
let's talk about Israel. So a couple days ago, it was announced that there was a ceasefire that was reached. We're still waiting to see if it happens. There's going to be a vote in Israel. There's contention over who is responsible. Biden says it was his diplomacy and his plan. However, some foreign policy experts, including The Atlantic, wrote that Trump is the one who pushed this over the limit. So there's a lot of questions pertaining to Israel. Should we be involved in this conflict? Should we continue to fund them? What degree of support for Palestine do you guys have, and how do you view the war? And I don't know who wants to jump in first.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll put my position out there. I don't think that we should be supporting either the Palestinians nor the Israelis in this conflict. Never have thought so. It's a terrible entanglement for us. We can't win, regardless of which side we were to back. We can't win if we back Palestinians. Not in the court of public opinion. The entire Arab world would love us, whereas most of the Western world would hate us. If we back Israel, the exact opposite. Most of the Arab world will absolutely hate us, and there will be blowback and consequences from that too. It's another great reason why our foreign policy should be one of disentangling ourselves from these foreign conflicts, and especially in Israel, we need to back away from that conflict as fast as possible, and that's always been the case. It's the first time I've ever heard progressives actually say something like that. So
I'll give my
for
stance
that.
on
I'll give them some credit.
No foreign aid to Israel. I think Israel's caused the United States a lot of problems. They run our foreign policy. If you look at every single terrorist that's
Why'd you
attacked the
soy
United
face,
States,
Tim? Why did you soy face?
200,000 Ukrainian troops deserted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AP reporting the official number is 100,000 charged, and estimates of upwards of 200,000 people have deserted.
That's why they were kidnapping people.
I don't
That's
want
what
to get back
I'm
on
saying,
Ukraine, but when I saw that, I went, holy
yeah, dude.
crap.
It's
Like, Israel.
terrible. Yeah, but no, it's crazy. That's why I'm saying the conflict in Ukraine is a waste of time. But yeah, when it comes to Israel, I don't see any strategic advantage the United States enjoys from supporting Israel. There's virtually none. Oh, there are eyes and ears in the Middle East. Well, the Middle East wouldn't hate us if we did not support Israel. So yeah, I think when it comes to Israel and our support of them, the only reason we do is because we have very rich lobbyists that make sure that we do, and our support of Israel needs to drop off.
Don't tell me you guys are going to support Israel now.
So, number one,
Well, I think you asked about the potential peace. We're going to have to see how it's implemented, if it works, because even immediately it was sort of, is this
thought Netanyahu delayed the vote.
go through? I think they ended up voting today. But and then the next, because a part of the deal is that later parts of the deal are going to be negotiated later. So seeing how all that plays out, will
Phase
give us a
2 and
sense if
3
there's
and
lasting
stuff like
peace or
that,
not.
yeah.
But the fighting stopping, the dying stopping, the carnage stopping is obviously good. Interestingly, I've seen some people on the left not acknowledge at all what you're talking about with the Trump envoy's role in this. Josiah and I both said did we cover this? No.
You covered it.
We
I haven't
talked
done
about behind
a
the
video in
scenes.
like 3 days.
For us, it's obviously
Lazy.
silly to not acknowledge at all the months of negotiations and the deal that's been constructed under the Biden administration. Biden's still the president, so if you're giving credit, that would some would lie there. But I acknowledge that the bipartisan presence in these negotiations, adding to, hey, it's not just us. You can't wait out the clock on Biden, Netanyahu, and Hamas. Trump is also saying the same united voice about what's gonna happen here, and that united front I do think was powerful. And with all my feelings that you've heard throughout this show about Trump, I'd give him or his envoy Steve Witkoff, is that
Yeah, real estate guy. No,
credit.
100%. Like I don't want to put the cart before the horse, because again, foreign policy, not my area of expertise to the extent I have any. My understanding was there have been like
Well, and even experts get it wrong constantly.
Well, but haven't there been like ceasefires negotiated or talks?
Sure.
We got a ceasefire and then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I'm with Luke. Like, you got to wait and see. But I am happy to give Trump a lot of the credit here, some of the credit here, because it was bipartisan effort. It was Biden's deal, my understanding of the framework of the deal, and Trump left them no safe harbor. He was like, you take this deal because you're not getting, I want this done before Inauguration Day.
I completely agree with you. Trump is the best. He's the greatest president.
Motherfucker right here. I'm going to withdraw that fuck you that I gave to you, and I'm going to toss it your way, all right?
We have about a half an hour, so I do want to make sure we get into the harder culture war issues. We talked about Trump as a person, actions he's taken. We talked about
Repeal the 19th?
Yeah, so let's start here. And I'm going to kick it off with something that's rather speculative. But we saw the overturn of Roe v. Wade. The argument largely from the Supreme Court is like, what are we doing here, right? They seem to take this position that this is not an answer for this. This is not a question for the Supreme Court. Let's start at the states. I believe there's a strong possibility in this next coming Trump administration, we see the overturning of Obergefell.
Which is the 2015 case which codified gay marriage.
Basically required all the states to recognize that if a gay marriage had existed and they moved to another state, they have to be recognized
Honored,
as being
yeah.
right. I think that elections have consequences, of which one was not directly, but with this structure of the Supreme Court, it seems likely that we're going to see a massive cultural shift. I think it's probable that we do have a case, I believe, that's going through now. I forgot which one it is, that could see gender identity removed as a protected class. I also think the Supreme Court may likely, if challenged, or I should say if a challenge is presented, overturn gay marriage. And I'm curious what our non-liberal friends think, because largely conservatives aren't going out there and making a principal issue that gay marriage should be ended, but I think they probably support the end of gay marriage.
I'll go first on this then, Andrea, because I know you have more nuance. Mine is very simple. Gays should be able to have civil unions, not gay marriage. It's a religious sacrimony. Then, obviously we all know the Abrahamic religions forbid homosexuality. So I don't think that they should have the ability to marry, but they should have all the civil liberties and protections that come from marriage. But the title itself needs to be changed. I also think that gay marriage is kind of a slippery slope. There's allowed a lot of sexual degeneracy to kind of flourish, right? Whether it's the 99 genders, all the other problems that we have with the drag queens, etc. I understand that it's a small minority. Trans represent 1%, but it's been problematic. And gay marriage has absolutely allowed that to flourish.
Okay, let me
Let me
first.
get my position.
And then you give your position, and I know,
So anyway.
Okay, stop, Andrew.
Yeah,
Just
you
chill.
stop, Luke.
You've said that every
Luke,
time.
calm down, Luke.
I thought I was
Calm
about
down,
to go.
Luke. Calm
well,
down.
Luke, let him give his
Take
position,
a breath,
and then you can
Take a
refute
breath.
it.
Literally said.
Hostility is
I'll go
so not
first,
necessary.
then Andrew. Calm down, Luke.
There we go. Go for it.
Remember how Tim said, I'm interested to hear from the non-liberals, their
I forgot
position.
about that, yeah.
That's not, are you a non-liberal?
He's going to say it's a libertarian now.
Stop talking.
Luke,
let's
stop talking, Luke.
Luke, just
stop talking. Okay, guys.
and then you can refute it. 'Cause I know you disagree with us.
I don't
Because-
actually care to go right now. I'm just curious, why you're this wound up.
Right, okay, guys, come on.
The only person that's Bergen is you.
Right, okay, guys.
Bergley.
The reason I asked the non-liberals is because they're going to present the argument that is outside the current standard.
Yeah.
It is currently the standard that Obergefell is upheld. What do you think?
So marriage is only as useful as it is recognized. And the state cannot force people to recognize marriage. They can't do it. People's purview of marriage is that it's between men and women. There's a reproductive status which occurs with it, and that it's a institution which is sacramental through religion. This is the purview of most people who still identify in this country. By the way, the majority still identify as Christian, like it or not. They still do. And so marriage is only as useful as it's recognized. We've had gay marriage now for a while, and it's still not recognized. That's the truth is that Christians still don't recognize it. They still don't consider it to be valid. They may say you're married. They may, the state can imbue you with marriage, and you can even have polls where conservatives say, you know what, fine, whatever, right? But they themselves, they don't recognize it as being valid. So I think it's completely fine for the Supreme Court to say, look, this is invalid. This should be a religious institution. We should take it out of the state's hands anyway.
Just to clarify, the ruling on Obergefell wasn't about whether it was a religious institution or not. It was about
I know.
It was a core component was whether states should recognize licensing from other states.
Yeah, just the secular part.
Right. Yeah. It was 5-4 on the liberal side, which is why I think it might go 5-4, inverting, overturning.
It could be.
Wait, before you respond, because Myron said something interesting that I did not hear Andrew echo, and I'm curious on that. He made a caveat for like civil unions or like secular unions. Would you do that as well, or no?
No, I think, here's what I think. I think that marriage itself as an institution from the state is gone anyway. I mean, look at the divorce rates, everything else. It's basically destroyed from a secular paradigm. I actually don't even understand the point of marriage for secularists. If it's just for tax purposes,
I was about to say taxes.
Then reform.
That's why I gave that caveat.
Spoiler alert!
That's
the only reason I gave that
Then all you
caveat.
have to do is simply reform the tax code so that these breaks are still given to whoever, or you could just reform the tax code.
I think you two are much more likely
So
to,
hang on,
accept to accept gay marriage than we are to reform the tax code.
Hang
Just
on.
wanna throw that out there. So yeah.
So you could, I mean, that's one thing you can do. The second thing is the breaks aren't that great. That's and that's the truth. They're not.
And at a certain level,
And
they're not. They're
the
not.
third thing is that as far as like a prime directive or things like that, you can give that to your best friend Doug. Like you could give your advance directive to your best friend Doug. You can do that to anybody who you're with. So all of those things you have access to regardless of your marital status. Secularists, it doesn't even make sense for them to be married. And if they are, why can't they just say, well, I declare that I'm married?
So again, just
I declare I'm married.
No adoption of children either. Gays should completely be removed from being allowed to be around
Can I-
children.
Just
Let me-
again, just to further clarify,
Decide,
one last.
killing
I'm
me.
sorry, one last thing. So in your construction, there would be like no state involvement with marriage or civil union at all.
Yeah, the only way that the state would become involved, and necessarily it would have to, would be for some things which could be custodial, things like that. But generally,
There'd be no license.
religion has always governed these things. And there's ecclesiastical authority standards from the Catholic and Orthodox Church, for instance, that govern how marriage goes. And by the way, the more religious you are, if you defer to the church for assisting you, and if they grant a divorce in the first place, in custody arrangements, things like this, they have a great track record of that. The state doesn't. The state doesn't have a good track record of it. They generally favor one parent over the other, and that's been the woman for a long time. That's been the standard. It is slowly changing, thank God, but that has been the case. There's actually no good reason, no compelling reason for secularists to get married at all. Definitely no compelling reason for homosexuals to get married. They're not going to be able to get married in Christian churches anyway. So who are they getting married
There are
by?
Christian
Just the
churches.
state.
There are Christian churches. That
No, those aren't
you get
Christian
married.
churches.
No, not by your
Identifying
definition,
as
obviously.
self-ID if
All right.
I'm Christian doesn't make you Christian.
Okay,
Luke,
so
go ahead.
yeah, let me go. So you mentioned, I know some of yours is detaching from, because you're saying even marriage in general is tarnished now. But to Tim's question, marriage isn't religious when the state is the one bolstering it, right? We have the separation of church and state, so it has to be a secular concept.
Why does the state need to be involved in
even
marriage?
if it's bolstering a something that crosses over with a religious practice, which is marriage? So the state honoring a marriage, which is just a legal commitment between two people. And that's something that people who are secular also want to make. And that's
do you
the
need the
state,
state?
honoring, because I do think a society is better off when people make such commitments to.
Yeah, why do you need the state for that commitment?
There's all sorts of things that the state will incentivize, even like as we try to implement some pro-family policies that give you better family.
Gays should have families.
So
And let me finish. Let me finish.
go ahead,
Come
go
on. And that, child tax credit, there's things that you want to support and incentivize through the implementation of policy. I think marriage is one of them. And so it can't be about whether or not it's tarnishing the religious concept of marriage, because those two things are separate concepts. Then you brought up, and I hear this
can we
a
do
lot.
it one point at a time?
Well, you made a lot of points as well. But you brought up that marriage is believed to be a man-woman concept.
Yes.
But I feel like that's a strange thing to put your argument on, because it's just public opinion, and public opinion has shifted so radically. Like right here, is this support for same-sex marriage? Yeah, so there's actually a majority support if you want to look up there.
It shows that.
It's dropping, but you were wrong.
No, I wasn't
No,
wrong.
you were wrong that people don't support same-sex marriage, because you were saying the concept is believed to be by people between a man and woman,
No.
which is not what the polling
That's
shows.
not what I said, Luke.
And then you talked about it being for reproduction. So I would ask, any restrictions you would implement for same-sex couples, would you implement for like infertile couples?
Okay, so let's back up, and yes, I'll answer your question, but I'm going to take these one at a time.
All right.
Okay, so let's start with what I actually said. I literally said, Luke, that it's the perception of the religious, these aren't valid. They're not saying you can't do them, because they just consider them to be invalid. Okay. And when you dig into the data, that's what you find. That's one. The second thing is the government's job, when the state gets involved for marriage, it's supposed to be for the promotion of the health and welfare of the state. That would be the family unit. Now, we can look at birth rates in the United States and we can see marriage has not done us any favors when it comes to reproduction. It has not done us any favors when it comes to intact family units, more single moms than ever, more single fathers than ever. There's almost no virgins who get married. I mean, it's basically that ship has sailed. Okay, the institution of marriage itself is cheapened. You also go on to say, what about child tax credits? You get those even if you're not married, Luke. You get the earned income credit even if you're not married, Luke.
And that was an example of the government incentivizing something.
Yeah, but the government's not incentivizing that through marriage because you get it even if you're not married.
That's what I'm saying.
You get it. Hang on, Luke.
I was saying I think marriage is an
let me respond. Let me finish the response, Luke.
Relationship as well.
Let me finish the response.
Just like how through other policies,
Luke, can I finish the response, Luke?
You said something fake about what I was saying, so I just wanted to explain.
Yeah, okay, even though you said it. You said, we have things in marriage like the earned income tax credit. It's like, no, that applies.
That's not what he said.
Yes,
let me explain so you can continue.
Rewind the tape, bro.
I said, I believe that marriage as a state concept, because you asked why should the state do it? I said, well, because I actually do think people building wealth together, building a life together, same sex or not, is a better structure for a society. And so incentivizing that through honoring it by the state is good, just like how we incentivize other things, like having children through child tax credit. It was just a separate, just like how we do that.
No,
that
wasn't. But to answer to your question, when it comes to women who are infertile or can't reproduce, and Andrew, you said a component of marriage is reproduction. Remember, this is a component of marriage, not the entire purpose of it. In my view, the purpose of marriage is that the man is representing the Christ head, the woman the body of the church. That's what the purpose of marriage is from the religious standpoint. That aside, from the secular standpoint, when you're talking about women who get married and they cannot reproduce, there's still a set standard for what is called normalcy, meaning if you are promoting the normalcy of men and women together reproducing, even the few who cannot reproduce, it still sets the standard for reproduction. In other words, it's still a reflection of reproduction itself because it's a man and a woman. So it sets that standard.
Yeah. And we have a different, I guess, obviously moral framework, because I'm saying I think the normalcy that should be exhibited, the behavior that should be encouraged through this institution is committed relationships to one another. And because I am fine with gay couples adopting, I think that's problematic.
Hang on. I got to ask one thing.
I think that's a good way to
Luke,
bond.
I got to ask, is that true? Is that actually true? Or is it actually true that you don't care if people have polygamous marriages? That you don't care if people have orgies in their marriage, that you don't care if they open their marriages up, and that you don't give a shit about they're not sanctified to you in any way, shape, or form? Do you actually care if gays have big ass sex parties, gay husbands, they open their marriage up? Is there any concern for any of those things as you're talking about, well, wait, I do believe that it's good for society to have this healthy, normal standard?
We got the question.
Yeah.
What is the healthy, normal standard?
Yeah. This is what I was mentioning earlier with the tone. I don't know why. I can explain it. Yeah. I agree that whether or not I care about what other people are doing in their lives, I do acknowledge when things are societally advantageous. And I think it's societally advantageous to legally, contractually, by the state, support people's commitment to one another and bonding of their lives, finances, etc.
Well, what's the normalcy?
That commitment.
But if the commitment doesn't mean anything because you just open your marriage up, you don't care about that.
No, I care about
annulment.
You can do all these things. What's the normalcy?
I haven't even said a statement about.
Okay, do you care if people open their marriage up, Luke?
Other people's ways of handling their marriages, I can think is not the best thing for their own happiness or whatever.
Sure.
And that's why marriage right now is still between two people.
Yeah, but what about the normalization aspect?
And so the normalization, marriage is normalizing the commitment. What happens outside of that, just like in straight man-woman relationships, crazy stuff happens too. And we can say, all right, I'm not going to hate on you for that, but I might have a stance that something else should be an affirmative good that we promote. Fine.
Yeah, so when we're talking about normalization, the reason that you think that marriage is advantageous is because there's a normalization aspect of society. I agree. But just telling two people, well, you can commit through the state via contract, For what, though, Luke? For what? What is the purpose? The purpose would be reproduction. The purpose would be a family unit. The purpose would be intact family homes. The purpose of it would not be for like orgy sex or for opening the marriage up or for things like that. You would have to have an
You can't have a
actual
family unit with two dads
Also,
or
at
two
some point,
moms.
want to talk about the legal stuff.
You cannot have a family unit with two dads or two moms.
where they
You cannot.
reproduce. You can't. But like,
cannot.
for example, with the it's 400,000 people who are currently in the foster care system. Some of those who are available to you can foster them or adopt them. I'd love, and I think it's a societal good for a same-sex couple, which outcomes for same-sex kids of same-sex couples are great. They're not worth
funded by LGBT.
yeah. It's always funded by everything I know, but you never have studies refute it. And so
actually, we do. We have a
I
lot.
think that it is societal good if people are starting families together, even if it's not with kids, but they have this commitment, which is good for them, good for wealth generation, good for life stability, which then all makes the community prosper more, and I think leads to better outcomes.
That happens.
I don't want to cut you off, but we are kind of going in a circle here, and I know that you want to throw something in there.
Well, you mentioned something interesting at the very beginning, which is like the legal implications of this, because Obergefell was a 5-4 decision, and Clarence Thomas did say in the Dobbs decision, in his concurring opinion, that perhaps we should, now having overturned Roe v. Wade, we should use the same standard to potentially overturn Obergefell. I do think that that's very possible, given the current composition of the court, and of course, more religiously conservative legal activists would love the opportunity to overturn Obergefell. But what will be interesting is in 2022, after the Dobbs decision, and I'm blanking on the names, either Defense of Marriage or Respect for Marriage Act. I think it was Respect for Marriage.
Yeah.
That was signed into law by President Biden. So in theory, the Supreme Court could overturn that as well, because it's just federal statute. But a lot of gay marriage protections have been codified, not quite at the level of
it's not the
Obergefell,
same, but yeah.
but by the Respect for Marriage Act. So it'll be interesting to see.
So we'll advance a little bit. One of the arguments made back in 2008, you had Prop 8 in California. Then 7 years later, you get Obergefell. One of the arguments made by conservatives was that this is a slippery slope where they begin teaching children about gay adult activities.
Yep.
Liberals largely said that'll never happen. And I know because I actually campaigned for the Human Rights Campaign in California using those arguments to get people to give money. Sure enough, here we are. And I am arguing against these books showing graphic adult content, including anal sex to children in schools. It happened. And the argument maintained by the left, one of the principal arguments is if a teacher is gay, and a child asks about the gay marriage, they should teach it. No. As it pertains to sex education, the argument presented by many liberals is that it would be discriminatory to only have heterosexual sex education. Mm-hmm. If you have sex education in schools, it must be for all protected classes, of which orientation and identity are protected. Thus, these books are in grade schools, and the liberals have defended children seeing fetish content.
No, so just like
the liberals have defended children seeing fetish content.
And this is what I mean when I said the slippery slope, right? When we allowed gay marriage, we allowed all this other degeneracy in. And my thing is like, look, you want to be gay, you want to do that, awesome. Keep it away from the kids completely. I don't think gays should be allowed to adopt children, be around children, read drag to them, any of this stuff.
Be in public, Myron. In public?
I mean, if we're going to be all the way, I think they should have gay-only zones where they can only have PDA there. I don't think they should.
Talking about a slippery slope. Okay, but
real quick.
I want to do this.
I should have asked that question. I thought that there was a line there. Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Clarifying point.
Yeah.
To a degree, public displays of affection are illegal. There's a limiting factor on it. So go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you meant.
I just asked be in public as a smart ass.
Yeah.
I didn't say have public sex, straight or gay. Just for the record,
Which they do. Hold on, I got to bring it up. They literally do it in California. It's on video and it's horrifying. It's illegal and they don't enforce against it.
Yeah, then enforce against it.
But let's not pretend that doesn't happen.
My thing is, marriage is a slippery slope.
Good luck going to California and asking the police to actually enforce the actions against what they're doing in public because they are. It's on video.
All sorts of crazy things in a country this size happen, including in the school I went to, some crazy stuff being taught that's way to the right. So inappropriate things happen, and we can get into that discussion. But first, let me answer your question, which was about books. I have seen examples of books. Straight content or gay content, doesn't matter. If it's overly sexual for a young person, of course you don't want them to have that. That doesn't really cross over into then that becoming the justification for banning all sorts of books that aren't offensive at all on all sorts of topics, and that's what we oppose. But then on sex education, I don't think it's bad when, at parents' homes, they're teaching sort of the more foundational moral framework to a kid, and that's up to them. At school, not too young, wherever we as a society have drawn the line of when sex education is the correct time, you actually find that people end up being safer and don't have teen pregnancies, etc. whenever you have comprehensive sex education, which will include, because this might apply to some of the people, teaching about the risks of STDs across all different people. And I don't know why you converge those two. Inappropriate books, gay or straight, shouldn't be there. But what we define as inappropriate might be, but like pornographic, obviously out. But then on sex education, teaching about the concept of certain types of sexes, which isn't really making a moral statement about it, but instead is teaching all the things so that when they go out in the world, they're prepared to operate as an adult.
Let's clarify. So sex ed was largely defined as, here are the reproductive organs of a male, here are the reproductive organs of a female, here's how they operate. What it has become now is there's a book called This Book is Gay, in which it describes eating feces. And literally, I believe the book explains to children how to use Grindr. The argument made by prominent liberals is, that is gay sex ed. This is how gay people have sex. If you say they cannot teach this because they do these things, that's discrimination under the 1964 Civil Rights Act, as orientation and identity are protected. Therefore, it must be taught in schools.
No, it's...
let me clarify.
There's also poo fetishes with straight people that you want to teach about. It's
and there
not really
is
about that.
So let's clarify.
But what's
there
appropriate,
is
what's not.
no such thing as LGBTQ sex ed. If sex ed is quite literally reproductive organs, and that's all it is, and how they operate.
That's not what sex ed is.
Yeah,
Sex ed
So you don't think we should
not
teach at all about STDs or contraception or anything like that?
That's science, organ, virus, etc. It's not teaching people different types of fetish practices.
No,
but I don't think we agree with it.
If
Just
you're
to be
saying
clear,
prominent Republicans are Nazis. It's like
so let me
crazy
ask
people.
What
That doesn't mean that's what we're
what
saying.
gay sex is educational and scientific that should be taught to children.
Sorry, ask that again. What?
What LGBTQ sex is appropriate for children in your view?
Yeah. So to lay out the exact presentation I think a teacher should give in whatever grade it is, I'd obviously want to go look at sort of the curriculum and all that. But I can tell you that the sex education goes beyond just here's your reproductive organs. And I think that's important. And when I've seen research about this, it's actually,
like how?
to y'all's interest, making people safer and less likely to end up
How
getting
does it go
hurt
beyond
because
that?
of things relating to sex. So as I mentioned, having sex, because this is something that happens whether you want it to
STDs
or
we
not,
agree on.
right? Even if it's between same-sex people, you probably want to inform people of all different orientations of the practices that you can
Okay.
take.
So are you saying that you would teach
But then-
children? Question. I have a question for that.
I'm going to finish.
You made a
point.
point.
I'm going to finish.
You made a point. You literally just made 2 points.
I was finishing my point, Tim.
You
Let
Whoa,
me finish
whoa,
my point.
Spurgley,
Okay.
calm
made a
down,
point.
Spurgley.
My question for you is, because you
Think of
just
like
said
one other joke about
there's
it. Please, it'd be
STDs.
great.
There's STDs, and explaining to children how to avoid these things.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean schools should teach children about anal sex?
So that's what I'm saying. I would have to look at what the research has shown is the most, not research, but like educational professionals have laid out is the most appropriate, because I really haven't, until right now, not thought about sex education.
The answer
for
should be no.
sixth
It
graders.
should be up to the parents. The parents should get a slip.
No,
If
that's-
you want
that's
your
not-
kid to
that's-
learn
that's
X,
how
Y,
you-
Z, and it
no,
should
no,
be
no.
yes or no. And if they say no, then they don't teach the kid
That's-
that. The parents choose.
That's how you spike teen pregnancies rates at a really crazy amount.
Oh,
be
really?
the parents'
so there was tons
decision.
of teen pregnancies in the 1920s, were there?
parents'
There were a lot
decision.
more teen pregnancies.
Wait. There was a lot more teen pregnancies in the 1930s, 40s, 50s?
What?
Was there more teen pregnancies in the 30s,
Unless it
40s,
was
and
like
50s?
they were getting married because they were getting pregnant. But
Wait, I'm
teen
asking.
pregnancy in other countries too. Like we can pull it up.
Out of wedlock.
Because this
out of wedlock teen
you might
pregnancy.
know. You might know that I sent so that we could have a thoughtful discussion,
Yeah.
a list of topics. This wasn't on it. And so if you want to come back and I can do all the research to understand exactly what sex education happens at this grade and that grade and what's most common, we can do it. But I do not
We
know
also
the rates of teen
didn't
pregnancy
agree to
in
this, but
1920
we're
off the top
on
of my
it.
head.
So let's have the
Right.
conversation. So, are you saying that in the 30s, 40s, 50s,
Did you hear-
there's
you don't
less
seem to be
there's
listening.
there's less teen pregnancy? So you can't answer the question.
Listen,
To be fair, he said he couldn't because he's not
with
prepared
the
for it.
1920 teen pregnancy rates. No, I don't.
Well,
know
because
that.
it stands to reason if you're for gay sex education, you would have to agree that when gay
Not
sex
gay sex
education.
sex education.
Yeah, okay, but when gay sex education wasn't taught in like the 50s, let's say, or the 40s, or things like this, and you say, well, necessarily we teach these things because it reduces teen pregnancy, it reduces, X, Y, and Z. Shouldn't we see those high rates back then when they weren't teaching it? And we don't, Luke.
You do have, I can't speak to every exact stat, but you do see the way that we've addressed STDs, yes, how we've decreased teen pregnancy at
Through
least
abortion?
recently. No, but
Yeah. So listen.
you can look
I-
at the rates of that too. But
yeah. So, is there anything based on what
comprehensive
he said
education.
about the level of education that you disagree with? Because it seems pretty comprehensive to me. At whatever grade you start teaching sex education, you should be like, discussing to the extent to protect against STDs and things like that. I don't think people should be teaching. Would you refer to it like
fetishes, yeah,
Fetishes,
no.
or like
Anal
of course,
sex.
eating feces and. I was going to say shit like that, pun intended, but like, no, that I don't agree with that at all. And
So
yeah,
those books are in schools, for instance.
we've already addressed this.
yeah.
We have bipartisanship. Get inappropriate books out.
Right. So
I don't agree that a book about like someone's journey being black or something, which one
No
of them
one
was, there were
brought
ones
that
like that, should be banned. And so there's a nuanced line there. We all agree with that.
Well, my thing is, I don't even think it should be in the education system unless the parents allow it. I think the parents should make the decision, do I want my kid to get this sex type education, this grade, whatever? And if the parent says no, they don't teach it. Kid leaves when they teach it. I think it needs to be on the parents, not an education
just to
system
clarify,
make that decision.
do you feel that way about like all sex ed, that there should be like all
of it.
sex education should
all
be
of it
voluntary?
all of it should be done through the parents. The parents decide when it's taught, how it's taught, and they have strict oversight of it, because some parents want to have that conversation with their children to educate them in their own way. I think that should be 100% on the parents, and then they decide. And then obviously they know what's going to be taught at different grades, et cetera. The parents should have 100%.
But even like sex education, I do know this for sure, but we could pull up the studies to get the exact numbers on this. A part of it doesn't matter how I know, but like my mom works in a space where there's a big emphasis of making sure people are being educated properly, because even like assault and knowing how to prevent sexual assault and knowing how to go to the proper authorities and like all of those things and understanding what assault is and when a teacher or something is crossing a line, whenever you're just depending on a parent who may not do it comprehensively or students to tell them about all these things, they end up being put in a more dangerous situation.
Well, the parents need to know what
not your
will be taught.
decision to make.
Well, that's the importance of educating the parent, telling them this is what we plan to teach.
There should be, yes, I agree.
And then the
I don't
parent
think,
can decide.
there should be
That's
total,
my point.
well,
You need to know the transparency needs to be there. What
There-
will be
because the
taught.
parent might be the one abusing.
there
You have to
should be,
teach them what abuse is.
Look at the teacher.
Why they should be taught exactly.
there
How are we
should
not
there
agreeing
should
on
be
this?
Well, the parent
transparency.
abuses them when they're gay.
I was just gonna say, we agree that there should be transparency. I think the state has an interest in protecting children as well, and educating about sex and avoiding the STDs and things of that nature.
So we are just about at time, but I do have one more question for everybody. Do you believe that parents should have the final say when it comes to the medical decisions of their children?
Final say.
I
Are there
have
some
a
edge
caveat.
cases?
I want to agree with this, but I do have a caveat. There are like religious nutcases who exist who they won't give their kids any treatment for anything, not a broken bone, not a, they have like a terrible infection. They won't allow them to have antibiotics. They just like pray over them, right? And this type of thing. I do support some sort of intervention on behalf of those children so that they get the treatment they need so they don't die of these like horrible infections or, something like this from a broken bone.
Yeah.
I think within the confines of reason, this should be ascertained. But generally speaking, of course, parents should have the right over the medical decisions of their kids. Who else should?
So do you guys agree with that?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. The only thing I would say is like if they want to say I want to transition my kid, then no. Because there are some loonies out there that say, "Oh, I want."
But
my
I
kid
put
to
that on
transition."
par with within the confines
I
of
wanted to
reason.
add that. I wanted to just add that. But like, serious medical situation or transitioning their kids. That's the two times where the parent's decision doesn't really no.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, as a general heuristic, I think that when it comes to minors, parents should generally have the final say. But I agree with Andrew that there should be some exceptions.
Like
that,
when it gets to the
with
kids, like neglect.
Yeah, exactly, or abuse or things of that nature. So I think it's just like trying to identify that line. And I'll totally admit that I don't know where that
like
line
people
is.
because
who don't
it's-
have their own.
It's not arbitrary, but there is interpretation
Yeah.
with it. There's
Yeah.
no way around the fact that there's interpretation.
So we do have to go wrap, but the reason why I want to ask and kind of go quick with it is that in blue states, if a child is distressed and the doctor prescribes gender transition, the parents say no, the state intervenes and says you do not have the right to decide for your child.
Yeah.
In red states, it's inverted.
that's been
In red states, it's inverted.
portrayed.
If the parent says my kid should get a transition, the state intervenes and says no, you can't. So I bring this up because there is this principle that people like to bring up that the parents should ultimately decide. But the reality is, based on the moral worldview, people will easily break from that principle.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because we all agree that the framework should be, if you're not yet able to decide for yourself because you're not a legal adult, then you have to decide in accordance with your guardians. It's just a matter of where do we draw the line of when sort of you lose guardianship because you're making such.
Well, what's so
they're
bizarre is I feel like the right.
Oh, but
the
also the blue
Christian
state stuff
right-
is often distorted.
I feel like the Christian right is the only ones who are consistent on this.